Shrek is a really bad movie.
Those are
What the
opening.
fuck?
Everybody,
What the
welcome to Dialog
fuck?
Choices podcast. How you doing?
How do you dial
boys?
911?
I'm so tired.
Sleep has Keith very little today.
Yeah, no, it's not great. It's just like, what if not that?
What
I
if-
had a good streak for like a couple of months where my new pillow setup was like a life changer, and now for the last few weeks it's been like back to being like, it's a bit of a gamble every night. And last night was like, what if 3 hours? Fuck you.
Oof.
And so I'm just hanging out, recording this podcast, and then I'm just gonna go right back to doing fuck all for the rest of the day.
That doesn't seem right. I feel like there's probably something more wrong there.
I'm sure. I can't wait to find out. I took melatonin.
Taking
And it was
drugs
like-
now? What's wrong with you?
And it was like, whatever, fuck you. You're gonna sit here for too long awake after you take the melatonin, and you're also gonna wake up too soon and then just stay awake. It's like, why?
I don't think I've ever had melatonin work for me.
Oh, oh my god! When I first discovered it, it would just delete me. Like, I would just take it, and then 10 minutes later, it was 9 hours later.
Jesus.
My God.
I would oversleep when I took melatonin, and I'm like, holy shit. And then it's like, I'd be rested, but I'd have to like recover from being asleep for like the first hour. Like, I'd be like, am I still tired? It's like, I had to like cook breakfast and drink coffee, and then suddenly like, okay, yeah, no, I'm fine. I'm good. Just gotta shake that shit
catch
off.
my feet here. Because all of a sudden not tired.
That's
And
what happens when you...
I try to take a long time before having it again too, but sometimes it just doesn't work anyway. And it's like, but come on, man, I haven't even had it for like 2 weeks. Can you please work tonight?
That's
When things are clearly going wrong already.
That's what happens when you're sedated. Because I used to take sedatives, and those like you would wake up as if like you were just kidnapped or something. You're like, what happened? Where am I? What did time go by? And you like look, you're like, I guess time went by. It's but it's I really hate the feeling of falling asleep on well, at least on sedatives. I don't know what melatonin's like, but I hate
you know what it feels like to fall asleep.
Well, without sedatives, you do, right? That feeling of
It's like I guess I know nodding off when you're struggling not to. You're trying to read or whatever, and you're like, no, stop, stay awake. But
sort of like
which
that. But
paradoxically, if I'm doing that and then I lay down, I can't sleep. I'm like, fuck you.
Yeah,
There's
that's very true.
I find like a good help for me to when I'm feeling like that, where I can't fall asleep because I feel tired. I lay down. My brain's like, haha, surprise! I'm gonna do arithmetic, and you're like, okay, no, not like now. Let's do that tomorrow.
Arithmetic is good because that's how I fall asleep
listening to stuff, and I'm like, how?
I can't do that.
It's
I can't.
How do you do that?
Yeah,
I've
can't
tried
fall
like
asleep.
firing up like something dry, like not like fucking H-Bomber Guy. There's an explosion joke every 10 minutes or whatever, but like, yeah, it's just a nice, chill Lindsay Ellis talking about like, I don't know, a play that I barely care about. And I'm just going to like sit here and I'm going to fall asleep like people always say they do to like Let's Plays and things. And then I just don't. And I'm like, this isn't working and the video is going to be over soon. And that's a long video. Fuck you. God damn it.
You need to be slightly engaged, but not engaged enough. I find that
I need to get an addiction to like reality TV that's fucking has infinite content, but I don't care about missing things on. I need to get into the great British Bake Off. I turned from British Bake Off to British Break Off.
Even better.
That sounds like a biscotti reality show.
My dad knows.
My dad. Yeah.
For me, it's Sudoku solving videos. It's just like I don't fall asleep. I just nod off, like because I'm paying attention and I'm seeing some things and being like, oh man, this.
I'm amazed by how much I want to fall asleep when I don't want to fall asleep. But then like
having a comfy chair is really good for that. But it's in bed. I can't do that because I can't.
Dude, like I live in a fucking computer chair, and if I go to my bed, my bed, there's no TV or anything near my bed.
Okay.
So it's just on its own. And so there's no comfortable multitasking situation. It's always a computer chair. So when I go downstairs to watch a movie on the TV in the rare windows where nobody's like fucking playing video games in that room or making noise or other shit that makes it agony to try to watch like a movie or something, that fucking couch is so fucking comfortable, and I'm not used to being that comfortable anymore because I just have a fucking computer chair. Definite fucking incentives to have an apartment at some point instead of renting a room.
Why? So you could have a comfortable chair? Just buy a comfortable chair.
No, I mean, so I can have like a sofa and TV situation, like a room like that, instead of I just watch and read everything on my computer.
You need to have a sofa at your computer. That's the dream.
But then what do I do when I need to do VR or like anything else?
Oh yeah, that's a nightmare then.
You do
It's not
other
the dream
things.
anymore.
Gross.
Or like when I want to, or it's time to like record like videos or something, like live action. Like a couch is such an obstacle to add to my room.
Also, I don't think that couches are particularly good for your posture. So working at a couch probably is bad for your back.
I don't think there's a lot of things that are good for your posture.
Life posture.
Sorry?
I refuse to sit in chairs correctly.
Oh no. Don't do
Andrew's
that.
seen
It's
this
bad.
shit for years. He knows.
Bad for your back.
I'm very aware.
Nah, my spine's
No.
broken and stupid.
I mean, it is bad for your back. You just don't care that it's bad for your back.
You know what's way less comfortable? Sitting right.
No, it isn't.
It's definitely not.
You gotta fucking work out. You gotta like focus on like, you gotta like get your posture all straight and like fucking arch your back or whatever the fuck, and then like
Oh no,
hold
that's
it
not.
for. You try and like figure out whatever the fucking like right spine alignment is that you have to. Then you have to work those muscles by just like staying there for hours. because I've never sat right. It's like physically uncomfortable.
There's a lot of myths for sitting right. Like, the sitting up you don't sit up for sitting right. Like you're not supposed to be like your belly like forward or whatever. Like that's not good posture.
Yeah. My feet are currently higher than my shoulders.
What? Higher than your shoulders?
My feet are currently higher than my shoulders the way I'm sitting.
What? That's not how. Well, how? What?
Don't think about it. Just let it happen.
Are you upside down?
No.
That's not.
No,
not
well,
how that works.
I'm leaning against my my armrest of my computer chair, which is digging into my ribs, and then my right foot is on the left corner of my computer desk, and my left foot is on top of my Xbox One, which is on top of my dresser.
Sure, make this sound appealing.
I'm recording this podcast horizontally, and that is not just because I'm tired. That's like most of Monster Prom.
No wonder you think the couch is comfy.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure it is comfy, but in
dude, there's
anything,
a deep side. There's a deep side where you can't even put your legs over the edge when your back's against the back. You just have to lay on it, and you have to like
that's cool.
Fold up your legs or something, and it's like yes.
That's cool. I like those.
There's a deep side.
It's just like it just sounds honestly like if you sat in a chair right, you'd probably enjoy it. Or you got a
when
chair
Stephanie's
that actually...
not here, I sit in both chairs.
Why? Just get
My
a
legs.
bigger chair.
I bend my legs under me, and then they go onto the other chair.
I literally sit
And then
cross-legged in my chair.
I like rock back and forth like between the two chairs like a caterpillar. Like I'm like both of them are turning in opposite directions every time. Like because I'll bend my knees, so I'll be going in and out, which makes both chairs turn in opposite directions, both orientations and so on, because of that how torque works or whatever the word is.
I
actually don't know why it does that.
I'm very concerned about.
It's because your knees bent, and so you're.
No, it rotates like sitting on top of a chair rotates it in a particular direction, and I don't know why.
Oh, I just mean like when I bend my knees, like when my feet go towards my ass, that means that the seat I'm in is turning left, and the seat that my feet are in is turning right, and then vice versa when I like stretch back out, and then they're just rocking back. So, this all leads to the additional topic, which is that like I'm just like I just need to get an assessment about ADHD. I just need to fucking find out.
Yeah. That's true.
Because
Not a bad
boy,
idea.
have I been
internet-
thinking about that.
The internet's so ready.
Yeah, I
For
think
you to
about
have
it a
some
lot,
kind of
but I've been
medical
thinking
issue.
about it more for the last few days. Because
Yeah.
was it? There's a tweet that says it's from Rachel Morgan Trimmer, who I don't know, but it's Twitter just algorithmically shows things that other people liked at you. And I get a lot of ADHD tweets. I kind of want to imagine why. They have every data point on me. But it's like, I had a meeting with someone to assess if they might have ADHD. She missed the appointment, apologized 3 times, then over-explained when we finally met. So that was easy. And I'm like, oh, great. Over-explaining's on the list too? That's, all right. The number of times I've, felt the weird need to say another thing about the thing I'm explaining, and then I immediately regret that sentence because I'm like, it's either they don't give a shit and I know they don't give a shit, so it was pointless to say more, or it's like, no, they get it. Why did you say another sentence about the thing? Cool. Let's add that to the list. It's like,
This just sounds like
added.
overthinking.
I mean, yeah, I do that all the time.
Well, I wonder if it has to do with it as well with the recognition of that, like the double thinking.
I don't know. I hate the entire list of ADHD symptoms because of the fact that I'm like, but isn't that just normal? It's like, and sound off in the fucking comments. I want to hear from the guy that's like, oh yeah, I hear all the ADHD symptoms, fucking can't relate. Because who is that? I've never heard of that person.
I'm here.
No, you're not real.
No,
Wow. You're gonna invalidate his entire existence
I'm a figment
like that.
of the podcast.
One feral swoop.
Yeah.
No, seriously, I
was chronically
I'm
late to every day of every job I've had.
What?
Like,
What the fuck?
Yeah, I got pulled in at Best Buy, and they're like, "Wait, so you've been late every day?"
Damn, they're
like,
really lenient. I was late one day and they fired me. Like, what the fuck?
And I pointed out that technically you can't sign in until after your shift starts, so you can't really be on time.
Bro, what is late to them then? That means like you were there 5-10 minutes late. Like,
but I definitely was like, I mean, on that part, I told myself it was because I hated my job, which was true. So it's like, of course I would leave like at the last minute before the time it would theoretically take me to get there, and of course I'd always be like 5 minutes late as a result, because that's not how time ever actually works. And I was late plenty to my job at the Watergate. My job at the water board. And I would just like kind of like hunch down and just kind of like scurry through the halls of cubicles and hope nobody noticed, because I don't think anyone really noticed when I was there or not, mostly because I didn't work with anybody.
it's also a state job. No one really pays attention.
Yeah.
well, I can definitely say that I mean, I'm not a physician or whatever the doctor is for that, but I look at the lists and I look at at people and I mean, all the power to anybody that finally gets diagnosed and all that. But I can't relate. It's not. I'm at least in that regard, I'm neurotypical. So
at this point, I'm like, what if I, like, it would be helpful if this was a thing, and it like,
especially if you can get,
I mean, obviously being diagnosed and treated for anything is helpful, but I'm just like, like, what if suddenly I can like just churn those scripts out? Like suddenly it's like, oh wow, look at me go.
I think you're gravely overestimating the power of controlled ADHD. It's more of just, hey, cool, now I don't feel like my entire life is playing catch up. Like, it's like that thing in DDR where you miss one of the the lines, and you like start struggling to try to get to that line even though it's already passed and you can't hit it
you have
again.
to
But
train
your brain's
yourself
like,
in DDR and Rock Band to like intentionally skip a note so that you can just at least hit the next one and actually get back on track.
that is literally all.
But instead, you can just end up chasing them all.
Yeah, that's literally all ADHD is: learning how to do that.
Yeah.
If you can learn how to not focus on the skipped note, you'll be solid. But like, that is why there's so much struggle, is because it just turns into it's like a downhill tumble. Like, you fall once, and instead of like catching yourself, you do a thing where you're like, okay, but if I throw myself up, then I can do like a spin and then land on my feet, I'll be fine. And you just tumble further down and you're like, oh fuck, that didn't go anywhere I planned. Like you just you have to like you just have to know when to just give up, where you're like, this is fucked, I can't fix it. Okay, next. Like
what's frustrating for me is that the entire list sounds like incredibly relatable ththings, but there's just the vague implication of like severity.
Yeah,
because that's what actually being neurodivergent is just, it's not like, a lot of it isn't stuff like, oh, here's a unique trait that only you have. It's like, here's a trait that is kind of latent in everybody, and that's why they specifically say like neurotypical and neurodivergent as a more accurate term, is because you're just in a different part of the curve essentially.
Yeah, and that's
disordered behavior.
That's the thing, is like, I don't have, for me, it's not a problem. It's not problematic for me to have ADHD. It's more of just like, I can manage it really well, but only, but I also do sometimes struggle with the note skipping. Like there will be times where I just like focus way too heavily on that, and then it turns into a big problem for me. But
does it fuck you up when you have like plans and like a thing that is like, you like plan out your day and you're like, I think I know what's going to happen today, and then someone walks in and it's like, okay, this is happening, and you just stare dumbfounded for a moment at them, like it's like, fuck, like what? I need to like recalculate literally everything about what I think is going to happen today and maybe this week.
That's why it's kind of, I guess it's not as knowledgeable for other people, but that's like why the garage was set up the way it was, and that's why I never left or did anything, is because it would I would panic if I missed something, or like someone showed up unexpectedly, and now I'm committed to these plans, and it's like, it was just so much easier to have this mentality of like, well, if someone wants to hang out with me, they just have to come to me, because like I can't leave, because if someone shows up, then I'm trapped. But it is like, a lot of it is just acknowledging it's like taking risks. It's like gambling. You have to say like, okay, I can technically do two things at once, but I need to be sure that if so much as the plate wobbles while I'm spinning it, I set the plate down. Do not commit to like trying to balance two wobbling plates, because you'll fuck it up. And I do that at work all the time, where I'll be helping a customer. It's like, okay, I think I can do another thing while they're talking, because I don't need to listen to them, because they're just saying stuff to make themselves feel better. Like when people like,
and here's why it's okay that I was wrong about the thing.
Yeah, but it's mostly people will try to explain to me a problem, and I immediately know what the problem is. I go, oh, okay, yeah, I know what the problem is. And they go, okay, so it does this thing. I'm like, all right, you know what? You just want to explain it because you want to feel better, like thinking you knew what was going on, like you've done some kind of mathematical research into the problem and you can give me some insight. I don't need it. I already know what the problem and the solution is. But go ahead and talk, because I'll do other things while you're doing that.
It leads to you like shortcutting your social interactions.
Yes, exactly. And so I just let them talk and not listen to them, and then I can just focus on doing another task, and then come back and be like, exactly. So this is what we're going to do to fix that. And then that's it. It solves the problem. But there will be times where I'm like, I'll always half listen to make sure that they like haven't said anything that upsets me, like something like, and that's why I deleted my System32 folder. I'm like, oh fuck, like, but so every so often I'll be in the middle of doing something, I'll hear someone say something, and I go like, oh no, don't follow that train of thought. Like it's someone saying like, yeah, and so I figured that's why right now I'm gonna restart the computer. It's like, no, don't do that. Like, and so there'll be this time where I have to like whatever I'm doing, I have to like hope that it's not something I need to press send or commit to, because I can't. I have to like full eject out of that and go back into the other thing and be like, okay, don't do anything. I'm right here. Let's get it started. But there obviously there are things you can't do that with. There's a lot of situations in life that you can't just eject out of one thing and go and focus on the other. And so that is where you take the risk management, like social interactions. Obviously you can't text someone and talk at the same time, because if someone goes like, and yeah, don't you agree? And you're like, oh shit. You know,
what?
Like you have to, you have to commit to one or the other. But there are some things you can multitask, and that's like, I think managed ADHD is like being able to recognize the things that you can multitask without taking without the risk of it collapsing on you, and you know, like, okay, I can do this. And if it does collapse, no, I don't take any medication. I don't. It doesn't.
Like you and Bird are like polar opposites there.
Yeah. Well, for me, it just like the medication doesn't. It only makes things like because so I have a lot of it is just like I feel more. It's like with caffeine. Like caffeine doesn't do well for me because it makes me feel like twitchy and agitated, and so like most of the medication I end up taking tends to make me either feel like that or like way too hyper. Like it makes me way too hyperactive, and I don't like that. I don't like to.
Yeah.
I don't want to bounce off walls.
Bird makes me nervous because sometimes we have streams where he's like, "Yeah, I didn't take my third dose today, and I'm shutting down. I'm gonna need to lay down now." Like he's just out, and I'm like, that's alarming to have that like thing running you to some extent. That's a weird concept.
That is that's a big factor in why I don't like I've never liked medication. It's just I don't like the idea of being like owned by a pill.
Yeah, I don't take any medications for anything.
No, that's not true. You took melatonin. Drug user.
Yeah, well, that's
here, dude.
Yeah, I don't have any kind of like consistent prescription thing that happens.
Yeah,
I'll try to hold off on melatonin 2 weeks at a time to hope that it's like an emergency escape button, and I'll take aspirin if you want to fucking go there.
Ibuprofen, taking too much ibuprofen is problematic if you're prone to like headaches or something. But
nah, I don't think I've ever had a migraine in my life.
Yeah, no, you definitely know if you had a migraine.
Yeah, I don't think I understand what a migraine is.
A migraine is like someone.
It seems like a problem.
Yeah, migraines are really tough. It's like watching someone being stabbed, but no one's stabbing them, and you're like, "What is happening? Are you okay?" And they're just like basically on the ground, sitting in the dark, going like, "Okay, look, I will talk to you, but only if you whisper to me and don't make eye contact." Like, oh fuck, all right.
Yep.
Like, I don't know. Migraines look brutal. Like my mom had them all the time, and it was so weird to like she would just come home and be like, "I'm gonna go sit in the bedroom for a bit. If you need me, just text me, please. I can't talk to people." And it's like, okay, but and just like sit there in the dark and like basically not do anything, just lay in the bed in the dark, waiting for it to go away.
A while.
Yeah, it's just it's brutal. I feel so bad. Like that's I don't know. Like you can't get rid of your brain. You know, like it's not like an organ. Like, oh man, my pancreas hurts. Just rip it out then. But like, you can't just rip your fucking noggin out, and it's the thing that's painfully hurting you all day. Like, just what the fuck?
I've just been thinking my way through the list of stuff, and just like all those times where it's like, wow, there's like literally classes that I only passed because I put way more extra time into trying to force myself through the textbook because I literally could not pay attention to a single lecture in the entire semester. And I'm like, is it just boring in like the normal way where everyone's in agony right now? Or am I just like, is it me specifically? Is there like a reason why I didn't get through fucking programming? Like I just shut down in the third semester and failed out of the entire class.
That's definitely just normal. People often approach programming in a more like big yawn, but if you can keep it going long enough, you may graduate kind of way.
Yeah. And like obviously I'm like fucking infamous for interrupting to the point where I basically am only ever getting a handle on it because I actively fight it because I've been shamed enough times because like people get so mad at me for interrupting so often, like the comments do, and to the point where I've been called a misogynist multiple times whenever it happens in videos with women, and then I'm like, have you not paid attention to all the other videos? Like,
what?
Come on, man.
Like if you're playing with Stephanie or something?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was like, wait, what? What do you do? Like,
yeah, like whenever there's a video where I talk over a woman, it's something because I'm a misogynist. I'm like, I don't know if you understand how often I fuck this up with everybody. Like, I think you're fixating a bit on that.
I end up doing that just because I panic about forgetting what I'm gonna say. Like I have a problem where I'll just forget.
You're like, you got to get it in, and like the topic's gonna keep moving, and then it won't fit anymore.
Yeah, bro, I think you might have ADD. Like, I don't want to armchair diagnose you, but I feel like we've got some similarities here
right now.
Like,
but it's like fucking like one of the things I learned is because I like read. I love reading, but it's a giant fucking it's a giant fucking page of text, and it's like
Yeah.
small usually because you probably got a paperback. I like hardcovers. I got the fucking like You Have Bad Vision edition of Orange is the New Black that has like, it's just like a plus size print version, and I'm like, oh, this is so much easier to read. And it's like, I don't think it's dyslexia. I think it's like literally like you go faster. like whenever I get a digital copy of a book on Kindle, I make the text way bigger, and then I get to press the page turn button faster. And like I noticed that like we're playing Monster Prom, and I mentioned like this is some of the most fun to read, and it's like obviously the writing, but also like it's like the rapid fire visual novel format. And like I loved reading Night in the Woods, where it was like fucking like 8-word sentences at a time. Go, press A, press A, press A. And so out of curiosity, I was like, instead of doing my reading tonight of The Witcher, I'm gonna like go on itch.io and download some free visual novels and stuff. And I just was going for hours, and I'm just like, oh fuck, like reading it like one sentence at a time, and then just pressing A to continue, and endlessly making progress completely destroys the part where you're like, oh fuck, this thought, let's think about this thought for a while. Fuck, where was I? Let's reread this page. Because you're just always going forward, and you just keep progressing, like fucking Disco Elysium in its Twitter formatted dialogue window, and it's like, yes, oh, let's go.
Yeah, there's I don't know if that's ADD, but I think that's just a more, I don't know, what would you call it, more
I don't know,
a more delectable way to read.
It's such a good way to deliver text, because you're just constantly line breaking, and you keep scrolling, and you just go, and you just leave the text behind, and it's like one of those things where it's like I've said, like I get so mad at the diagnosis list for ADHD because all of it sounds like also just normal-ish things about attention and boredom and so on. I don't know.
My eyes aren't necessarily the best eyes, but I do enjoy reading books with tiny fonts because there's so much text in a single page. And I'm like, I can read the same page for.
What is wrong?
I
what
love
is
it
wrong
when a
with
chapter.
you?
I love it when a chapter is like 4 or 5 pages, and I'm like sitting there for half an hour reading. Not half an hour, but you know what I mean. Because it's good. Because I like knowing that like when I'm reading and I'm going down the paragraphs and whatever, I like knowing that I can just look up and see the previous paragraphs and what I read, and it's just lovely. I love it.
This is the most dialogue choice I've ever seen. It's like
Jesus,
the idea that you fucking...
What the fuck? Is that what people are like?
What the
I
fuck?
like it.
Is that normal? What the fuck?
I cannot imagine what is
Maybe
that.
I do have ADHD.
Sounds
Jesus
awful.
So I fell down the fucking rabbit hole of being like, I want to buy all of this literature that I want to get through one day. Let's get it's like I wanted to get through Lovecraft, I wanted to get through Sherlock Holmes, I wanted to get through Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Those are like the first examples that come to mind, because those all are things you can get in like a giant compilation mega book.
Yeah.
And you learn real fast, like, oh, that's intimidating that this is 1 billion pages. So you can't like finish the book and put it down and start the next one and feel like a milestone's happening. But also that text is fucking tiny to make that work. It's like reading a dictionary, and I'm like, what have I done? I'm never reading these. I literally gave up, and like I think I bought the Lovecraft compilation for $1 on my Kindle or something, and it's like, here we go, big text time, let's go. And I read Color of Space for research for Annihilation on that.
I think I read the original Lord of the Rings in a big, like a literal just here's all 3 books in one book, and it was upsettingly big. And I remember like I got through the first book and I was like, oh, that's just the first book. There's still more. And it's like you look at it, you like, you know, you take like, you get to that page and you take a step back from the book and you're like, oh my fucking, there's so much more here. How? Like, how did you do this? Whereas like you look at, it's like it for like, I'll read like 15 volumes of a manga. And then when you stack them on top of each other, suddenly you're like, oh my God, did I just read like a fucking, like I read literally every Harry Potter book stacked on top of each other's size amount of content in like just 30 minutes somehow. Like, how did I do that? And like, what is happening?
Harry Potter's a good point too. Like that's a good example, because like that's like how a lot of people got into reading and so on too. And it's like eventually I would like choke my way through trying to get through all the fucking Necroscope and stuff like that in its normal paperbacks, and like kind of having the wandering and so on. And and like, but I like reading. I like these stories, and I'm gonna make it eventually. But fucking like Harry Potter with its giant fucking hardcover books that are like double spaced and shit. like they fucking like even when I read the scripts for the Beast movies before the second one came out, and it was so awful. It was like, these are such a fucking quick read because it's a fucking script. It's like there's so little text per page because it's like, you've seen how scripts are formatted, like a screenplay. Like it's so, you just that's a 50-page book being sold as a 250-page book. Like they're tricking you.
Yeah.
And it's like I wonder if that on-ramping was made possible in some, I don't know. Then you get to hear fun things like how, like, when you try to get diagnosed, get a diagnosis, you often have to be more sure of yourself than the physician, not the physician, the psychiatrist is, because they'll like actively resist any kind of confirmation, and that the entire process for applying is supposedly like this thing that actively is like, hey, here's a checklist of all the things that would basically self-select ADHD people out of following through a process. And it's like, oh, it's just the process for getting diagnosed as ADHD. This seems like a problem.
Yeah.
I've gotten multiple fix-it tickets because I've gotten multiple fix-it tickets because I will get my registration sticker and then it'll just sit there on my counter.
Oh my god.
All I have to do is take it downstairs, unscrew my license plate cover, and put it on the fucking license plate.
You want to hear one better?
Thankfully, a fix-it ticket's only like $20. It's like $150, but then you show that you fixed it, and they're like, okay, 20.
Yeah.
But like, fuck, it's been like 3 times. I think.
What is this thing that you're referring to? Fix it tickets.
So
we
we
have to pay an annual
are,
registration for our car.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get a little sticker on your license plate that you put there to show that it's there. And the cops will write you a ticket and put it on your windshield if you don't take care of it. Like, cause it's really obvious. It just says the year, and also they're color coded, so the color changes every year, so they can really spot them. So sometimes my car will just be in the driveway or on the sidewalk, and then suddenly there's just a ticket there because the cops just drove through the neighborhood and got me. And then you have to like go get your registration paid and get your sticker. Or in my case, just remember to use the sticker, and then go to basically just go to the police station or something and like be like, yeah, see, I did the thing. Can I get my fee reduced to?
Oh, I
and
see.
then it
You
goes
do
down
it
to like the
after
$20 or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you can just pay them cash like at the station to take care of the ticket, which stops being a 3-digit nightmare.
Here in Portugal, we had a similar system for a while, and now, I think last 5 years it's all like ticketless, or rather, this the little thing that you put on your windshield. We don't use that anymore, but it used to be the same system. Now it's all computers. Basically, if you don't pay, you have an APB on your car or something.
Oh my god! But Andrew, were you saying you didn't do? You were multiple years behind.
I'm still behind. I haven't renewed it since 2018.
You're driving with an illegal car?
Yeah, actually, technically, my car is no longer valid because I haven't gotten it renewed.
Have you never? So you've never paid your registration?
Nope. I got it
to
and
do the sticker.
I just got it and I forgot to pay it, and then I was like, oh, it's been like a year. Oops. And then it was like, oh, I guess it's been 2 years now. I'll just wait. And now I'm like at the point where the cycle's almost come anew, and the color I have is about to be the new color, so I won't to need it for a whole year.
Yeah.
It's and it's, I don't know. I tried fixing it, but it turns out that COVID like wiped out that department, so they don't have time to get to people now.
Hopefully not in the real wiping out type of wiping out.
In the real wiping out, they don't have enough staff. Like they're understaffed in that department.
I hate interacting with like every government like process. I will literally
it's rough.
Put it off until the last possible minute, which just makes it worse.
It's worse than the dentist.
I pay quarterly taxes estimated because I'm self-employed, but for some reason I'll do them the day they're due, and then I often forget and do them the day later, and then they don't seem to get me for it. But it's like I know the amounts, and I can do it at any time leading up to that date, which is sitting on my calendar. But I'll be like, okay, I got to pay my quarterly taxes tomorrow, and then I'll remember 3 days later that I didn't.
Okay, I don't think that's ADHD because I am the same way. So
But that's the problem.
But
Is
that is one of
so
them,
many of
yeah.
the things are just life people.
Yeah.
Like people just get
is-
bored in class, right? That's
Yeah.
every movie about class.
I
The
liked
weirdo,
class.
the fucking weirdo nerd that I supposedly was. Like they're all into class. Well, I
All
think everyone
into
varies from
class.
class to class, right?
I don't
There's
know.
like-
I
there's
was
like rough
I was
classes
poor
and-
growing
and good
up, so I
classes.
wasn't really into class.
For me, I only got bored if the professor had a particularly bad voice, or I say bad, but like I had professors that I just could not stay awake, and like I would sleep. I couldn't.
Yeah, I mean, I only
In
graduated because
university.
I cheated. If not for that, I would have not graduated school. So like,
fucking history is a struggle. What a
I mean,
nightmare.
for a lot of people,
Math, I
history
could
was a
follow
struggle.
along and like do it and like think through the process, and then I could get weirdly engaged in math of all things, the most supposedly boring class.
Yeah,
Like,
it must be
I
nice.
did great at math all the way through, but fucking like history and stuff, I'm like, oh god, it's like literature but boring.
Oh, how you could get through fucking math? That's
I majored in history. I always loved history, but it does depend on the professor as well.
I mean, I fucking love geometry.
what the fuck.
Great.
You get to use a ruler and you have a pencil.
Shapes.
School is
I want to calculate areas. Give me
Yeah.
complex, weird, fucking Google Thorpe shape fuckery, whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
It was fun,
I-
like piecing it together and shit. They started losing me when we got to integrals, and I'm like, okay, this is very abstract, and if I can't actively follow along, then it's really hard to pay any attention.
I never got that far. I haven't
Art
had
class
a
is
maths
good,
class.
programming class is bad.
I haven't
I'm-
had a
I'm-
maths class since I was 14, so
I'm proud
Wow.
somebody
Spent-
finishes his classes.
I've spent the last 20 years not having had math classes.
God damn.
Although I do web development, so I need to know some things every once in a while. I
No, you
had to
don't.
figure
Do you
out
have a
by
degree in
myself.
anything?
Yeah, in archaeology, but
Oh right, I forgot. Right,
Yeah.
archaeology and geology. That's our weird backgrounds that
In
don't come up
archaeology?
much. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Are you
So
building
it's
websites for
basically-
dinosaur bones? What the hell are you doing? Web design.
No,
Yeah,
that's
no.
That's not
Yeah,
archaeology. here in Europe.
paleontology is dinosaurs.
Oh, sorry. Are you making websites for lost civilizations? Like,
Yeah.
But,
Weirdly enough, paleontology is part of the geology major, not the humanities majors or whatever.
Yeah, because it's so old. Like you need to know
That's- yeah.
the rocks before you get to
it's
the
in the
bones.
rock layers and shit. Yeah,
you
I
need to know the
fucking
rocks.
I got away with shit in that class. Like I was not supposed to do a paper on what I got to do my paper on, but either it was too late to say no before they realized the mistake, or they just didn't give a shit, because I definitely did an entire paper on wolves, and it's like, that's not paleontology. They're that is human history. The domestication of wolves into dogs and so on. I'm like, that's literally human history. That is not paleontology. Everyone else had significantly older numbers on all their shit. I didn't give a fuck. I had a great time with that one.
Keith goes up to the board and be like, "Okay, my presentation on wolves last week."
I'm using that at my job more than I am my geology. I'm fucking. There's a whole section of that in the Beastars essay I'm determined to
wolves?
keep. Just
You
about the
used to-
domestication.
You used to talk a lot more about crystals and gems and
Yeah.
rocks than you do.
It just
Although
fades rapidly. Like I wanted to do
I
a
know,
final
I know.
episode of the Patreon series where I finished every remaining question, and I keep not getting around to it. Partly because it's not part of my routine and my schedule. So it's like, when do you do this? Just as bonus content, and it's like, that's hard. But like one of them is like, what is the most complex geology concept you remember or whatever? And I'm like, well, obviously I'm not gonna just fucking like spout something out. So even if it is the hardest thing I supposedly remember or whatever, I'm gonna like research it or something and be
don't
sure I'm
remember it
right.
anymore.
But then I don't, ever make it. But like so
I
much of it
had-
fades, like my German and stuff like that. Like in the early
Yeah.
days, people are like, oh my god, he speaks German randomly. It's like, yeah, well, I had taken it 5 years ago back then, and now it's been like 15 years. And similarly, like I started my solo channel basically in the last month of being a geology major, basically. Like I was graduating shortly thereafter, and yeah, now it's being like, okay, we're coming up on the double digits of years it's been since I studied anything rock related. So how much I remember crystal twinning and cleavage planes and original horizontality and basalt columns and all these other bizarre things is like real fading. But the geometry shit followed through to geology. The same shit happened again, where it's like, which part of this is history and which part which tickles the history brain and which part tickles the math brain and the geometry brain. Because like every time I had to memorize fucking chemical formulas and numbers and anything and like charts and like names and like mineral identification traits, boom, nothing. I would sit there with flashcards for weeks and it was a fucking fool's errand. And I'm like, in real life, I was so mad because I was like, this entire thing that I'm working for weeks to memorize, it fits on one piece of paper, which I'm holding right now. I could just take this with me if I did this for a job. I could just use this. I don't need to memorize this. This is stupid. But fucking structural geology, like how like the layering of the earth works and how it changes and deforms and how all that shit happens, and like talking about oxbow lakes and basalt columns and stuff like that. Fucking let's go. That stuff was great.
In my course, we actually our exams were actually with books. We just took the books. So the exam would be, there's going to be an exam on this subject, and they said it's specifically what we were going to write about. And then we all we had to do was just bring the books that we thought were good. And what I would do is I would prepare like do the research at home and be like, okay, if they ask this specific question, I'll go through these points. If they ask this specific question, I'll go through these points, and just put that in the book. So I would consult the book, but I would also have the cheat sheet. So yeah, just everybody goes to exam with the books, and that's pretty common in humanities. But yeah, archaeology is kind of a weird course because there's so much stuff to specialize in and learn that all that I took away was all that I took away from my course is how to learn from reading books and reading the previous work of other historians and stuff like that. And obviously
I got away with not studying for so much of my life that by the time I got to late college and was genuinely had trouble with some classes, I was like, do I know how to study? Like, do I know how to fix the part where I'm coming up on a final and I don't really understand the class? Because I've been like in school for like over a decade and I've been fine.
That's interesting. I know how to study, I think.
I had an astonishing talent for just not getting through a book when my only goal was to get through a book for that day. And I just got to read these pages, and instead I'm just going to fucking stare at a wall.
Staring at the wall would be an obstacle to getting through a book, yes.
This should have been a better book.
I know what you mean.
Why didn't the Green brothers make this book? And also every time, all of school, just all communication of all school elements.
Probably because that would be really expensive in time.
They're working on it. Crash Course. They've been working on it for like a decade now. Crash Course is fucking
Crash
prolific.
Course been out for
what is Crash
a long
Course?
time.
That's one of the many projects made by Hank Green. It's Hank Green and John Green. It was originally them doing every lecture, but it's essentially like the democratization of school, essentially, like just trying to get entire courses taught at least in a way via online videos. They're like 10 minutes long as like a series. It's what PragerU pretends to be, because it pretends to be a university, but it's actually like a propaganda machine. But Crash Course is literally like, yeah, here's our series on here's our series on literature where we're going to go through all these books, and here's our series on physics and so on. And it's like it's actually like a series of lectures that are written as internet videos and are often shown in classes now. It was originally part of like a PBS grant or something, which is literally like, that's the whole point of that kind of grant, is to do that. And now it's like a Patreon funded, ever present project,
which is cool. I mean, I like the idea of
it's cool.
a PBS project or funding going to something neat. They usually come up with really cool stuff. Because I think I want to say Sesame Street was also PBS funded. Like it was also a grant that turned into like what it is now. So
I think Sesame Street just is on PBS.
no, I think it started off though. I think they started the production based on a PBS grant.
Something like that, maybe. It's definitely the premise is to be like a children's show on that channel and so on. Specifically, the goal of Sesame Street, I think, was to specifically target like educating inner city youths in a way that was like being actively neglected at that point. And that's why it has that kind of setting and approach.
Yeah, it's like in New York because that's apparently the only it's the only
Still
urban
going,
in
right?
the United States. Yeah, oh yeah, Sesame Street's still ongoing.
That is
just-
astonishing. It's like Simpsons old, isn't it? Like
It's older.
It started in when? Not Bert. I don't care about Bert specifically. 1969.
first episode 1969.
Nice,
Yeah.
dude.
Oh my god!
Of course,
it's like
it's super
my
old.
parents old.
Yeah, well, it was
Mhm.
it was made by Jim
Holy
Henson, so obviously he had to have been
fuck.
alive when it was made.
Yeah, but like he was alive in the 80s.
Well, yeah, but in the 80s, what
I
was he
wasn't
doing?
ready for
He
the
was kind of busy.
60s. The beginning of Sesame Street's a lot closer to the Beatles than I expected.
Nice.
In fact, it's the same
Um,
time, right? Weren't they still alive? I was still like going until the early 70s.
I don't know.
Holy
I don't.
shit.
Jesus. I did not think those were overlapping timelines.
I
Beatles.
knew about this reality, and
4,000 episodes. Man,
Yeah,
it takes.
Beatles was 1960 to 1970, so Sesame Street and them overlapped for a year. I was not ready for that fact.
That's crazy. There are more
Holy
episodes of
shit.
Sesame Street than One Piece.
Gotta follow them arcs, bro.
Right? How do you, people complain about One Piece being hard to
52
catch up with?
seasons.
That's crazy.
about Sesame Street. Yeah.
I've never watched Sesame Street.
Really? You've never
No.
watched it at all?
No.
That's surprising, actually. I
don't
think
think I
wa-
ever did.
well, I guess I
I think I
technically
grew up
would
on
be.
VHS copies of Ninja Turtles and shit. I don't think I even like had. I think growing up, I didn't even have access to like television, cable, or anything most of the day. Like I was in situations where I had to like just watch things that were like physical media.
Mm.
Yeah, I do know. Like I think I ended up having to watch it. Like my grandparents had a schedule for me, and it was usually like, so I would get home. The moment I'd get home from work, I could play like the Super Nintendo for a bit, and then they wanted me to take a nap, and that's when I had to like sit and watch some kind of educational TV. So I had to like sit in their bedroom, watch like either what was Eureka's Castle or Sesame Street, and then I'd fall asleep to that because it was boring as shit, and then then I'd wake up, and then I'd have to like play. I'd play like physical toys. I have to play with physical toys in the living room with my grandparents around, and usually it was like my grandfather watching football or my grandmother watching like Jerry Springer, which was great. What a very exciting television. But yeah, so I remember seeing like a lot of Sesame Street episodes but I always got like pieces of it. I never watched a full thing because I'd fall asleep. So I have like bits and pieces of it, which is weird. But the idea you've never seen a single episode is crazy.
You're missing out on the continuity.
Am I though?
Here in
Because isn't it
Portugal,
like, I think isn't the benefit of Sesame Street that there is an overarching theme where it's like, oh, we got to learn how to share our rocks, but there's like, but they're all each episode's made up of a bunch of like micro, what do you call them? The self-contained stories. Like they'll just be there'll be like a little segment of Bert and Ernie going to the store, and he's like, Bert, I don't want you to buy rocks and put them in my bed. And he's like, oh, why not? It's fine. And it's like, they have different voices and things like, I don't know what's wrong with that, Bert. I'm sorry. It's like, oh, okay. But they're like, yeah, aren't they like self-contained? Like a lot of the skits are self-contained, but they all they all are about an overarching theme of like the day. So you could technically
You'd have to tell me you're the resident like
I
watcher.
remember specifically like
Resident watcher.
there'd be a couple of skits about a
I mean,
particular
are you gonna tell
topic.
me you watch Sesame Street in Portugal?
I did. I was gonna say we had translated to Portuguese I think the live action bits were all Portuguese actors, but all the rest of the stuff, the puppets and all that, would be just dubbed. So I watched Sesame Street. It was interspersed. I think it's the same in the US. Like there were all these skits and things with songs and with drawings animated and like claymation stuff like that. Yeah, so it's probably the same format. So I probably watch a bunch of the same, except all in Portuguese, which I'm sure sounds really weird to an American. I mean.
That's neat. I mean,
And
that's
to
really
me.
cool to hear that Sesame Street is like
Yeah.
spreading that far, because that's like you think of all the entertainment that Americans make, and it's like that would be the one you probably want people to look at. Like that's not an embarrassing piece of media. That's great, cool. I'm glad we're teaching kids around the world. What a
Absolutely.
I mean, that's great.
I think I watched Sesame Street for a while.
I was gonna say good old American education system, but Sesame Street's probably better than our education system.
Sesame Street exists because we don't have a good educational system.
I think when I was like 8 or 9, I started watching Teletubbies a little, and like they were entertaining, but they weren't as cool having things as
Did
Sesame
Teletubbies
Street.
teach you any? Is it like
No, I don't think so.
I've
Just
only seen
mostly
like
Isn't it just
Yay!
a horrifying fever dream?
yeah, I think I've only
Yeah.
seen the intro of Teletubbies, but I've never seen an episode of it. I've never like sat down and watched a full episode.
I remember 8-year-old me sitting down and watching that my first episode, and I was like, "Oh, that was pretty all right. You know what? That's pretty good. I'm gonna watch it again." And then probably for a few months I watched it. But then
I remember like Barney. I do remember episodes of Barney because I think my sister used to watch it religiously. So I remember like the terrifying, like it was weird because while she watched that, I was really into Jurassic Park at the time, and so it was this really great cross section of like me being really involved into like dinosaurs as a real thing. And she's like, I'm watching a show about cartoon dinosaurs. I'm like, dude, that thing would fucking maul those kids. It would not even let them live, let alone hug them. It's like, it's great to watch like the dinosaur fever that happened.
Dinosaur fever.
Well, that's what it was. Like that when Jurassic Park came out, it created this like huge explosion, and like people wanted to know about dinosaurs, and you could buy books about dinosaurs way easier than you used to be able to, and museums had giant dinosaur exhibits, and it was like just a weird dinosaur craze because one guy was like, I like the book, I'm gonna make a movie about it. And it's like,
I'm gonna make a movie about it. She's burning up. She has to fight off the dinosaur fever.
I mean, look what happened after Ready Player One came out. Now we have metaverses. So I'm under the impression Steven Spielberg is actually just making society worse for us when he makes movies.
We're tech company announces we've recreated the devil portal from the movie Don't Create the Devil Portal.
A great tweet. I love that tweet.
Just this fucking, it hurts. It's like literally like every universe that has that, like Lawnmower Man shit is like, hey, it's bad, don't do this. And like Ready Player One has the weakest version of that. It's not very good at condemning its own thing because it tries to throw a shitty little bow at the end of the whole thing to be like, and that's why the metaverse is bad, but the whole movie was about how the metaverse is good actually, or the whole book is. I never watched the movie. I don't hate myself, but the fucking, I mean, I kind of hate myself. I do like watching bad things, but Ready Player One makes me angry.
Yeah, I can tell.
If I ever watch the movie, it's literally going to be because I forced myself to watch the movie because I read both books, and now I'm going to make a video about it.
I remember
really
like
bad.
I remember getting the book in like a loot box or something, and I just had it sitting on my shelf, but I never read it. But you had like saw it and came and was like, "Did you read this book?" I was like, "No, I haven't read it." He's like, "It's garbage." It's like,
It's so bad.
like,
Yes.
damn, all right.
You really
You're
start
yes,
to lose
it
your
is.
shit right around the time you start reading a list, and the list keeps going on to the next page. And you're like, what the fuck? It's just, what is it?
the book, the movie is kind of the same thing. Like for me, I wasn't gonna watch the movie. I wasn't gonna watch the movie, but I did because I knew it was gonna have the effect. Well, among other effects, but I knew it was gonna have the effect that it did have on me. Is because I didn't get any of the references. It's all just word salad half the time.
Yeah, no. Jay Nicholson's most genius video is the one where she just makes Ready Player One for girls, which is just to just show how shittily that book is written by just reading real passages from the book, but just replacing all of the references with like 80s girl toy references and girl show references, and then and then like for people that are having all their buttons pressed by all the shitty references. Suddenly it's like, oh fuck, this is just noise. It's just noise for pages. And like the references should have appealed to me. It's like, oh yeah, the love interest character of the person who made the entire universe or whatever, she's literally named after Kira from Dark Crystal. It's like, wow, that's really weirdly specific. And an entire planet is about 2112 by Rush, and like that's really specific. It's like fucking made for me, except for the part where it's Ready Player One and it's a trash story and it's just a fucking list of things I like and other things I don't know about at all.
Yeah, well, I got some references, but you know, the game, the movie does some explanations, and obviously there's the more.
I just know the movie has a scene where fucking the Iron Giant fights in a war, and I'm like, that's not what that movie's about. That's not what that character's for. That runs directly counter to the entire premise of the Iron Giant.
The whole thing, yeah.
What the fuck?
And I never watched the Iron Giant. I know.
Yeah. It's up there with watching fucking Space Jam 2 trailers, and they're like, look, it's the Clockwork Orange people in the background. I'm like, fucking why? What? Why are they at this basketball game for children? Like, it's just fucking noise.
That's everything now. Everything's references. You have to like reference something.
I hate it.
People will be scared and not know what you're talking about.
People call it fan service, but if you were a fan of that property, you would care about the context in which the characters are being used in the first place.
That's why anime
like
uses
Noctis
fan service
showing up in
way.
Final Fantasy 14 is supposed to matter because you care about Noctis as a character, not just seeing his hair.
Just seeing his hair.
Jesus.
Like, wow, it's Noctis's hair. Well, that's the thing. It's like, oh wow, Lightning is a fashion model in real life. Look at these ads. It's like, that's not her personality. Like, you're supposed to like a character because of their personality and their motivation and things they do, and not because they look the way they do, which is all that Lightning was sold on. And like, that's the Ready Player One and fucking Space Jam shit, is just here's a fucking amalgam of noise of random things you recognize without any of the stuff that makes sense about why you'd want that character in the first place.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's one thing in Smash Brothers and it's just a fucking context-free fighting game, but like fucking movies are stories.
The thing with the fan service is that, like, ideally it's much cooler. Well, ideally, in practice and in reality, it's so much cooler to just do the same scenario that another movie has, or like name it, or like I was gonna say name drop something, but I think like parallels are cooler than just be like, hey, we watch Star Wars as well. But the thing is, you can't do that for as many intellectual properties as Ready Player One does, because it's the machine gun approach. So you can't have a scene for every movie that you're referencing. So you're just gonna mention all the things that you remember, or talk about, I don't even remember. It's been a while.
It just feels like I think the guy just had a lot of passion for a particular time in history that he grew up in. And
it does not feel like that.
Shitty passion.
Well, it doesn't have to. I didn't say it was. I didn't say it was good
crash.
passion. I'm just saying he had passion for a thing that he grew up in at a time.
He has pop figures on the shelf, still in the box. Passion for the 80s.
Well, yeah, he's the exact type of person that is made
kind.
for it. He's somebody who just wants to live in the memories of, like, man, remember back in the day when 80s action movies were good? Like, that's the kind of person he is, and like that's fine. It's just not something that makes enjoyable media. Like, I don't want to read I wouldn't want to read a history book that's like, man, remember that time that we like just systematically slaughtered people? And it's like, no, like, can you like, let's talk about it. Can we address the media? Like, can we talk about the fact that like some of the media, like Joust isn't a fun game? Joust just isn't a fun game, guys. Let's just acknowledge that as a community. Like, it's really shitty that you have to fly on a dumb fucking unflyable ostrich and jump on people's heads or stab them in the ass. Like, what a terrible design, because your enemies just turn on a dime to you and fucking kill you instantly. It's a shitty game made for Atari. Of course it's shitty. Like, but no, the game like idolizes it.
It's early primitive stuff that you'd have to like really tweak. Like,
well,
the idea of a weird Flappy Bird mount that fight each other in a game could be a thing. It's just there's like balancing things to like, you want to like add physics and like inertia and like stuff that makes it feel like it's actually some kind of competition that would make any sense.
It just, I don't know. It's like, imagine somebody in the future being like, man, guys, remember Fortnite dances? You remember flossing? And like, you would probably punch
and if you
that
don't,
person.
you don't even know what they're talking. You can't even picture what they're talking about.
Yeah, but it's just like,
There's
that's the thing. Is
chapter, like an entire arc in the book devolves around him just like reenacting a movie verbatim because he just loves the movie so much that he has all the lines memorized. But like, I didn't come away knowing what the movie was about, really, or what happens in it, really. And it's like, I'm reading about somebody reenacting a thing and I don't know what they're doing when they're reenacting it. It's like, and it's like, yeah, it would also be a shitty book to sit there and just re-describe the entire plot and all the lines of a movie. But not doing that also just leaves me being like, well, that sure is a movie that I don't remember. I literally don't even remember the name of by the time this chapter's over. This was a worthwhile read.
That's what I mean, is like, what are you supposed to walk away from that with? Like, why would you as the audience want to interact with that? Unless you like also are somebody who's in the know. Like, if you're somebody who does also happen to know exactly what he's talking about, then this sounds great. What a great book, right? Because now you have someone who's validating your likes and interests or whatever. Someone saying like, yeah, I also like Joust and fucking I don't even remember what the movie was that he recited. Probably fucking like Ghostbusters or something. But like, yeah, cool, great. Like, we all like
Matthew Broderick. That's the 80s, right? That's just all the 80s.
Pretty much. It's like, I don't know, that it, like you said, it must be really enjoyable for people who don't know anything about the property that's being spoken about. Just sitting
There's
there.
There's definitely a reason why Spielberg was like, when he tried to recreate the same irritating effect, he was like, let's fill it with Overwatch characters and stuff like that. Because like, if you left it at the 80s, but you're making like a PG movie for that audience, it's like, who the fuck is this for? Like, the target audience doesn't know what the fuck you're talking about. He's talking about the 80s.
Yeah.
I'm surprised it like I guess anything passes publishing, but it's like really surprising.
Anything that gets enough attention.
Yeah, it just seems really surprising that an editor would read that and be like, yeah, this is gonna make a lot of sense to kids today. Like,
yeah. The best thing to come of the entire Ready Player One existence as a property was just launching up my Valve Index for the first time and walking around my little weird like mountainside apartment that they put you in, and then just spawning copies of Ready Player 2 and throwing them into the horizon, just fucking frisbeeing them away, because it's so satisfying. Because there's a bunch of things you can spawn in your room, and the default set has two Ready Player 1 / Ready Player 2 like product placement things. I think they're physical copies of the book Ready Player 2, I think, and then just a statue of the Iron Giant, which I can get behind that. Just put that in the corner of your house, and it's like, that's nice.
Statue of the Iron Giant.
Yeah, it's just there. It's just in your house when you get in the Valve Index's like lobby that you launch into whenever you want to go play a game.
Okay.
Like, if you just hit the VR button on Steam, it just opens you into that room. You can find my Valve Index video where I like experiment with it, because I'm still trying to figure out how to record it, and that was like a test video basically that I was like, whatever, I'll let's play this lobby. But I just start fucking frisbeeing the fucking Ready Player 2 books, hardcover books, into the woods, just off the cliff of my beautiful bullshit house, and just it's so satisfying because I hate the book, and also they just go so good, they just gone.
Oh, you mean they just fly?
Yeah, like they spin on axis just so satisfyingly and just arc into the horizon. Like fuck you. I just sat there spawning them and throwing them off my balcony.
Wow. Honestly, that sounds like a pretty fun time to spend inside of a VR.
But have you guys ever tried to watch Action Button?
No. I don't know what it is.
It's a video essay channel, and as you know, that's like my exact shit, and that's all I could think about during this conversation a bit because of the fact that it's like I don't get it. Because like his videos do pretty well. And
you don't get him, okay?
Yeah, I'm not
sorry. I thought you were
fucking out for blood.
The...
Like whatever, make your videos however you want. Maybe they're good eventually or something. I watched the entire Last of Us video and did not get a ton out of it. He was like speaking entirely in like very exaggerated language about how monumentally earth-shattering it is and stuff, but also like was often like not getting like into the nitty-gritty specific satisfying details that I love about video essays, like the granularness of it and so on, or like here's my really specific thing I'm fixating on and all this other stuff.
He has enormous videos. How is he not doing that?
Oh yeah, no, he's got a fucking like 6-hour video about one of those things, but I don't know if I can take it after what I've seen so far, because
oh my god,
so here's the thing, what looks like his shortest video is a 1-hour video on Cyberpunk, right? That's actually like a fucking like 50 episode mega playlist nightmare thing where you're supposed to click on the playlist in that video to see the rest of the content because it was too long for one video. Yeah, but what my progress bar on that video is only halfway through because it's 1 hour long, but I literally was just so like, it's a learning experience to some extent. Like I think about my own process and like whether or not certain sections are necessary and whether or not this is a point worth making and so on, because my horror is the idea of making a video like this where the entire first half an hour is him just listing things, just listing things.
You don't like lists?
He just keeps saying the names of things, and it goes on for legitimately half an hour. And I'm like, is this an experiment? Is this a psychological experiment on me? Like, what are you doing? I don't and like, I get it. You like, I'm doing it myself in multiple videos right now, and we'll see if I cut them or not. But like, you often start a video essay by talking about a different property. And like what it is there's a point to it, like there's something analogous to it, or you're building to something and like there's a whole thing going on, or sometimes you're talking about history and that history is going to be important to you discussing the media you're discussing and so on and so forth, or it's an anecdote or who knows what. Like the video essay intro that is like some kind of like cold open non sequitur feeling thing, but actually it's important later, is like a thing. So I'm used to like the it takes a bit to get to the thing that's actually in the thumbnail part, because it's often what makes the video better. Like it's often like a really tried and true thing about what works about these things, like how the NFT video by Folding Ideas opens with this thing about real estate, which was very helpful for all sorts of elements of that video.
It's very helpful for non-Americans since they probably had no idea what the fuck was going on.
But I can't stress enough that for the first half an hour of that fucking Cyberpunk review, he's not talking about the things he's bringing up. He just keeps listing things. It's like legitimately like reading Ready Player One, where I'm like, okay, you're introducing that. Okay, we're gonna talk about that. No, he's introducing another thing. Okay, are we going to talk about that? Nope, he's introducing another thing. And it's like that fucking like loop just continues for half an hour. And I'm like, you had to write that. You had to record that. You had to edit that. And there has to be a point. You can't just keep mentioning things.
You can't keep
I'm
getting
so
away with this.
confused. You can't keep getting away with this. I have never been like, I've had boring video essays and ones where I'm like, you know what, they're not doing enough to get me to care about the topic as somebody who's not already like introduced to the subject or whatever. Like I clicked on it out of loyalty to the channel or whatever, but then I'm like, nah, you know what? It turns out I still don't care, and I'm gonna move on and see you next time. But like, I genuinely have never been confused by the very existence of something in such a way. And like, maybe it gets good in hour 4 because that's a terrifying thing about that channel. But like, I'm just like, I just watch video essays all the time, and I'm so confused. What happened?
I always wondered too.
And specifically, people have recommended it to me independently, so I'm like, no.
I wonder if there is a. Sorry, I was just gonna say. I wonder if there is a thing. Like, is it like, did people interact to like Lindsay Ellis this way when they first started watching her stuff? Where they kind of like, man, this is a shitty format to endure for a thing. But then eventually, over time, people are like, wait, no, this is, you've got something here. Like, I think this isn't. This we can work. I mean,
the answer is yes.
But I'm saying for this person, is this person like, are we gonna come back like 10 years later
on to like the right thing?
Are we gonna come back 10 years later and we're gonna find out that like this guy did it? He like revolutionized storytelling on YouTube or whatever. It's just like video essays or something again. It's like, I always wonder about that whenever something's like way out of my field. Where I'm like, oh, I just don't get what the appeal is. Am I not a visionary? Do I not see the future of change?
Is this actually Fortnite or TikTok, and it's gonna fucking explode, and you just don't understand, old man?
Am I just an old man? Am I just like, I don't get it. These kids talk about cyberpunk for an hour, and I haven't seen any cybers. Like, I don't like.
I mean, I was one of those people that was like, this is bad and boring with Lindsay Ellis originally, but it's because like, the only thing I knew at the time was just nerds that shout about things they're angry about. Like, that was what internet content was. That was like reviews or whatever. And especially later on, like I talked about before, like when like she kind of like opened me up to the idea of video essays in the first place. But like at first, the word video essay wasn't a thing in my mind. So like, some stuff like the Rent video, I was like, this is a very different kind of review because that was the word that I had for a video about a piece of media that talks about that piece of media and makes like statements of quality or analysis and whatnot. Like, it was like there was like a gradient. There was like an on-ramping from like, here's Red Letter Media's fucking like half an hour breakdown of the opening scene of Phantom Menace and shit, to like this, like the dominoes keep falling and suddenly you're like, and now here's the 6-hour Death Stranding video. that I've seen and I enjoyed.
6-hour Death. I have not seen this. I honestly, Death Stranding had too many. For me, it picked on.
I'm sorry, 7 hours.
Oh my god!
I just checked.
How did that get worse? What do you mean 7 hours?
No, if you type Death Stranding essay, you get a half an hour video by Writing on Games. You get a 1 hour video by Eurothug. You get an hour and a half minute video. Hour and a half minute. You get an hour and a half video by Noah Caldwell Gervais and a 7-hour video by White Light, and I've watched all of them in their entirety.
I can't believe like making these like big videos like that must be it like you need to have the fan base there already, because otherwise it's just such a risk. Can you imagine a small channel coming onto YouTube and be like, oh, this new game, I'm gonna make a 7-hour essay, and then
isn't there a guy who does that?
10 views. No, the problem is if you're
Noah
new to
Caldwell
YouTube,
Gervais.
Yeah,
if you're new to YouTube, you're gonna get
been doing that, or did he just start doing that recently?
I found him via a 7-year-old video. I don't know how old it was then. I think I found him when I did my Mass Effect series, where I played all the Mass Effect games. I think I was like looking for videos just to kind of vent about the ending of Mass Effect 3. And so I found his 2.5-hour video that was a thorough look at Mass Effect, which was the trilogy at the time. And that's 7 years old. And that looks like it's one of his first videos. So
I mean, maybe he's been
doing it.
He's been pretty consistent with this long thing. I think you can do that. I think you obviously take an inherent risk because like YouTube tends to be like, you kind of want to start out with small but rewatchable stuff, because you want to build to getting well, I mean, back in the day, for being technical, you couldn't even fucking do a 2-hour video until you reached a certain milestone. But but like now you would ideally want to create a lot of short burst rewatchable videos and then get to the point, because once you get that consistent watch through rate and you get that consistent rewatching rate, then YouTube's like, okay, we'll start telling people about your shit, and so then you can make longer stuff. And even if people don't watch that as much, the other smaller videos like will buff out the longer stuff. Yeah, it'll like, obfuscate the fact that your long content's both good, but maybe people don't get like all the way in the first watch. But like now, you just slap like a 4-hour video down. It's gonna be pretty rough to get out there.
I've seen both extremes. I've seen weirdly large content make a channel explode, like because of the fact like if they do watch it, it's like that's some engagement numbers, and then if the algorithm like reacts to it the right way, suddenly it's like, I'm gonna show this to everybody, and then everyone's like, why is everyone being suggested this 7.5 hour long video about Resident Evil? It's like, I mean, I'm curious. Well, how was there a 7.5 hour video about Resident Evil? And then suddenly you're like, which he did. Noah Cudwell Gervais is a 7.5 hour video about Resident Evil, but it is the entire franchise, which is a monster of a series.
Sophie from Mars has a pretty long series on Resident Evil, but I don't think it reaches 7 hours.
No, and she references that video in it.
And I get that, but it's just like, god damn. Like I don't know. How do you even export a 7-hour video? Do you just don't have a computer for like a week? How does that work?
Your computer crashes all the time. My computer crashes if I try to export more than 2 hours. Or no, the Premiere.
I break that regularly with Resident Evil. I mean, with a Final Fantasy 14.
I think it has to do with the amount of edits and cuts. Because the last time I did it more than 2 hours.
Like when I made my Monster Hunter video, I would edit like 8 minutes at a time, then render that, then start a new Vegas file, and what do I do? I would copy paste that Vegas file of that project, and then name it like part 2 or whatever, and then delete the part that I've already edited, and then keep editing the next part, because like once you have 8 minutes of video essay broken up with like a billion random cuts and stuff like that, it starts the performance just starts tanking. And then rendering that is probably a nightmare too. But at the end, you just have a bunch of separate videos that are rendered, and then you can like render all those together as one video. And at least on my computer, like my computer usually renders faster than the runtime of the video.
Well, it depends on the settings, but so mine does as well. Yeah, it's usually not the time. The issue is to whether is it gonna make it? Nope, crash. But yeah, Premiere is a nightmare sometimes.
What I can't imagine is putting that much work into something for that long, for such a long duration, and not like being like, okay, let's put out part 1. let's put out the first hour and a half. Let's do this as a series. It'll like keep me afloat for a while. It's like, nope, I'm gonna fucking stick to it. Finish this entire fucking 7.5 hour thing and put out all at once. How?
I know I agree. How indeed.
I don't know, man. That still is just insane to me. I love the idea that you're running a computer so ragged, but the computer's also just like holding your like what is it, your job hostage, where you're like, you need to make this video or else, and it's like, well, if I have to do this, like I may not want to do this, I'm taking you down with me, and it's like, oh god, like it's just such a crazy standoff to be stuck in, where you're like, how do you even keep track of that? You wake up after going to sleep. I guess I imagine you set it. You wake up every day and you like run over your computer, like, okay, where are you at? And it's like 15%. Oh, okay. And then you like go to the bathroom and come back and it's like, I crashed. Fuck. Like,
it's just this endless background anxiety.
I think there's what is it? I know for a fact, like the trick is to create small segments, render them, and then put them into one giant video, so the video doesn't have to render
it's the cuts,
actual content. It's rendering clips which already have all the hard work in them.
It doesn't have all the layers and mess.
Like somehow your computer or your like rendering software just gets worse the more cuts you make in it.
Well, because it eventually it's just like, here's 500 like media references that it has to make at once in order to make the video renderable and so on. At some point, you're just like, fuck it, just make it just a
Yeah.
video. Just be like, render this video and then put this other video behind it. The end.
Yeah. That just seems weird to me though. I couldn't imagine.
You also get to upload each clip individually too, and then like those clips, like you know whether or not they're getting blocked.
Yeah, that is obviously really helpful to know, because nothing's better than finishing uploading a 7-hour video and then finding out that like 5 hours of it is blocked in a certain region. That's
There's so
People
much
that make
better
a
ways
living
that
on this
YouTube
stuff
could
is
help.
terrifying. There's so many channels
Yeah.
that take like months to make a video, and then it comes out and then it's like demonetized, and then you appeal to YouTube and they're like, nah, and then you're like, well, there goes
no.
my entire income from this entire video I made for months. So Patreon link, please. That's
I did
basically
see
what they
there
can
was-
do, which is awful.
I did see that there was a thing recently about I don't know if you saw there's a guy who does a lot of stuff about like One Piece and Dragon Ball Z, and basically like he just does a lot of anime, but specifically a lot of Toei anime stuff.
Toei?
Yeah, Toei. So
Oh yeah, the
you
guy
know,
whose channel got like deleted.
yeah, whose channel got like basically
like every
nuked,
Dragon Ball
and-
video.
and he survived. He actually like managed to, like, YouTube stepped up and actually helped him out, get everything working
After
again.
a lot of outcry, he was
A
being
lot,
reported everywhere. Like that
a
was a
lot of
news
outcry.
article. That was a news story.
Yeah. It was a lot of work, and even like after it happened, like I watched the video of him talking about how it all went down, and he was just like, it was months of like a lot of problematic liaisons and having to interact with like another country, and it's just a lot of work. But the fun outcome was that YouTube just like decided, okay, well, I won't technically win this fight, so the best option is to just follow what they want where they want. So like, you know, obviously Toei is like, I don't want any videos of like any anime on the internet by law. That's just my entire interpretation of the law, is that I don't want any of my stuff on there. And obviously YouTube's like, fuck man, like what? Like how does that, like, fair use has to exist? And it's like, well, in Japan it doesn't, so fuck you. And it's like, okay, so then their conclusion is just like, fine, we block the video in Japan, and then technically no fair use laws are broken. Like, we just, each country gets to
Oh, is
decide.
that what they did? Did they block
Yeah.
his videos in Japan
Yeah.
only?
So they basically said, you can, all your videos are back, but they cannot, you basically can't upload videos to Japan. Like none of your videos can be uploaded to Japan. And so, like, I thought that was a pretty
That's a pretty
ingenious
good outcome.
That's a pretty ingenious
Yeah,
outcome,
yeah.
given the
That's
fact
not
like
that
the
much of the audience.
yeah, that's what he said. He was like, most of my audience aren't Japanese anyways because I don't speak Japanese. He's like, I'm just talking
Yeah.
about anime. So he's like, it's really easy to like, I know that if I went to court for fair use, I would win it. I'm doing something that is considered fair use. I'm making commentary. Like he's doing
But
video
that's such
essay
a
stuff.
that's such an ask. The idea that you
yeah,
have
but
to go to
it's-
court just to make your videos.
It is an ask, but also he would still technically lose because he would have to go to court in Japan, because that's the company that's suing him. He's not being sued in the US by Toei USA. He's being sued, or he's being attacked by Toei in Japan, which means that it would be up to the court in Japan to decide his channel's fate. But if they block all the videos in Japan, then he technically isn't posting videos in Japan, which means he's posting
Yeah.
videos in the United States, and they would have to go through a liaison in the US, like Toei US, to sue him, which they would lose because by US law, he's doing fair use. So like, it's a really smart, I loved that solution. I thought that was really cool. But I also realized, like, wait a second, is this going to be a
damn it.
feature for people? Can we like decide where we want to upload videos to? Because that would be neat if I could say, you know, like, I'm going to upload a video essay on why, I don't know, like why this very obscure property is bad. And the country it's from is like, no, you won't. And they just like block it all. And you're like, oh, okay. Well, you know, if only I could just not let you guys see that. Like, you could just kind of be like,
Yeah.
I never made a video about your property. And you just like kind of like magic hand wave away the whole thing.
YouTube's deeply frustrating with this stuff, where like you you'll make a video and you'll go to great efforts to re-edit it over and over again to get like the right monetization status. Like, oh, the bots decided that this was bad. Okay, maybe they mean this part. Maybe this part made the yellow dialog sign happen. Then after re-uploading it over and over again for like maybe even weeks, it goes up, and then people start watching it, and then like 2 hours later, suddenly the fucking monetization status just changes without even telling you, just out of nowhere. And then it's like, well, fuck you. Like, it just happens. Yep. Or like the copyright stuff. Like YouTube didn't even tell me when my vampire videos came back. I was like, oh, they're back? What? And like I kept a copy of my finale of The Last of Us 2 on my hard drive for like 2 years because I kept waiting for it to get blocked again, because it got blocked and then I appealed it, and then the appeal never got accepted. It just never got responded to or notified of ever again. And I'm like, is the hammer fallen? Like, what's going on? And like in that Resident Evil video that I made, the commentary one, I had to do like 500 random weird edits and jokes, and I kept adding more visual gags to obscure the copyright content, and that made the video better technically. Like I was kind of happy with the result of that. But then after doing all those steps to finally get a version of it that will go up without being blocked, like 2 weeks later or something, or a month later, it just was blocked one day without it. And I'm like, what? Can you fucking like finish scanning it, give me an answer, and then never look again, please? Like, can you fuck off? Like, it'll just change its mind. And I'm like, fuck you. What do you mean you changed your mind? And so I re-uploaded the entire Resident Evil video again, but now with like a really annoying border on the screen to try to fuck with it a bit more and so on. And I've already edited the shit out of it. Like, this isn't like me just uploading the movie. Like, can we fucking get on with it? And that version was fine until a week later. It was suddenly blocked in like 20 countries, but it was like French Polynesia and Haiti and Mali and Turkey and Chad and Tunisia and Monaco, and like the copyright thing will even tell you like it's just a whole bunch of places like that. And then the fucking copyright thing will be like, yeah, so it's partially blocked. It's blocked for 1% of your audience. It'll fucking tell you the breakdown of what percentage of your audience you're losing, essentially. And I'm like, okay, that's as good as it's gonna get. Fine. And the reason why I said God damn it earlier when you were talking was because I looked at it to use this as an example, and it got blocked more. Damn. It's still not as bad as it was before. It was blocked in the US and stuff like that in the previous version. But my second highest demographic, which is Germany, even bigger than the United Kingdom, which is 4% of my audience, is now blocked. I'm like, fuck, no. I thought we were past this. It's like the fucking second live re-upload, not counting all the attempts that I did on my burner channel, that was specifically like even more edited for them to just fuck off and let the video go, is now blocked in Germany. So, and like the way that works is that people from Germany that look at my channel, just the video just isn't there. They don't even know they're missing it. And that's just makes me wonder like how many channels you can look at on the YouTube where like if you like fucking like
you're in the wrong country, just no video.
Suddenly it's a different channel. Like it's like everyone's YouTube channels are like Netflix, where if you VPN them, suddenly different videos appear. And it's like, that's a weird experiment to play on some channels to find out the hard way of like, oh, I've been missing out on this whole time. So sorry, Germany, you get a VPN if you're in Germany or Turkey or any other place that can't find my Resident Evil video. Fucking blame. Oh, I thought it was going to be a snappy thing to say. NAN Films LLC, Constantine Film, CPR Agency for Belga Films, Fanatic Film, BBTV, Sony Pictures 2, Leak ID LDS.
Jesus.
That's all one company? No, that's multiple ones, right?
Maybe? It's all for one clip, so that's what's confusing.
Oh, no.
That's a dog pile if I've ever seen one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We talked about this before, but I fucking hate the copyright. Like, now that I'm doing video essays, I hate the copyright system. It's great incentive to do videos on games because like video games are just like, fuck off, upload whatever you want, who cares? Oh, that one cutscene's blocked. Oh man, what a downer. I guess I won't use that one cutscene. But fucking movies are like, you upload this video and then it gets blocked for one part and you're like, okay, well I gotta edit that part. And then you upload it again, and it gets blocked for a different part. I'm like, could you tell me all the parts, please? Could you list them? You apparently know more than one part, but like, But I think the YouTube bots are so shitty and stupid, they don't know more than one part. They literally find one reason to block your video and then they just stop. And it's like, in some ways, that's bad for them because they're literally not doing their job at fully scanning the video to find the, like, because what they should be doing is at least like finding the biggest reason to block something. Like, I don't want to fix this video that's blocked for 4% of people because the moment I fix that, it might get blocked worldwide by the next thing it finds. Like there's a way bigger domino just waiting and the bots aren't noticing it because they found this one thing and just stopped. It's so fucking silly. Like it's such a trash system for literally everyone.
It's funny too because you talked about like it gets blocked in different countries. Like you'll just wake up and suddenly it's now blocked in certain areas. And I wonder if that's like the bots finding something else that was more egregious, and then they like the copyright owner was like, no, that one you can't definitely show. And it's like, okay, so they just like replace the thing that got you in trouble the first time with like the worst thing now. Like, just what is the?
I just checked my previous version of the video, which has twice as many views, but then stopped getting views because it got blocked in the United States. That one's blocked for 40% of my audience, which includes the United States and Canada. It's not blocked in Germany.
So weird.
It's not blocked in Germany. But it literally is the same video, less obscured. So the clip that got blocked in Germany is there.
How does that even...
But I don't want to put it live because then I have 2 copies of the same video for everyone that's not in Canada, United States, and Germany. Everyone else, like the UK, they'll have 2 Resident Evil videos. And like, why is there 2 Resident Evil videos?
You just title
for everyone else, they're like, what do you mean? There's only 1 Resident Evil video. And then you get to have a fun, confusing conversation in the comments.
Yeah.
YouTube's fucking
and that drives up engagement.
Yeah, but is it worth it?
Absolutely.
Like I guess technically it feels incredibly unprofessional and annoying to have 2 of the same video on your channel.
Yeah, I agree. The upsides do not outweigh downsides. Especially, I mean, so it's the Resident Evil. It's just it's not your main style of content.
No,
either.
it's just the commentary videos.
Even though it is really funny and very, I
thought it'd be fun to do one between each essay because they take so long to make, and those don't take as long to make.
I can't. I mean, I know that essays take forever, but honestly, the level of editing, usually you must have spent hours and hours on that thing. Besides watching.
Yeah, no, there was more. Especially once the original draft of the video that was decidedly lazier got blocked, and I was like, okay, here comes every time it gets blocked, I'm gonna add a visual gag to that part of this video. So like. There were some visual gags originally, but there were like 4 times as many by the time I finally got a version that wasn't blocked on YouTube. So that was like some fucking art from adversity or whatever the shit, or like limitations led to me being more creative, and that was kind of cool. But there is way even when just making the highlight version of it, there is way more editing like density that goes into a commentary video where you have to follow the rule of like only like 6 seconds per clip or something, or you get blocked, than there is on a video essay where you're kind of just matching visuals to your script essentially. But the problem with the video essays is because you have to write them. Like, I know that when I'm in the middle of the fucking the pit that is editing a video essay, like I just have this massive road ahead of me and I'm tired of it like immediately, and it's such a process, and it will take like days or weeks. But when you edit something, it's done. Every time you edit the next few minutes, you're like, I'm done editing those few minutes. And you keep making tangible, real, probably not reversible progress towards finishing the video. Whereas you can like stare at a fucking blinking cursor for 3 hours and get nothing done when you're writing, or worse, spend all day writing something only to decide a week later that whole part needs to be cut because you hate it, because part of the writing process is also like deleting it and re-editing that, or like going back and forth on whether or not that's even a thing you want to discuss, or whether you even write about that thing in the first place, and so on. Like, the writing process is so uncertain and nebulous, and you has no clear like how far you're getting feeling at all, that like it's so much harder to deal with than the act of just like recording or editing once you're past that.
Yeah,
It is a
thanks.
thing.
Thanks.
Just
Maybe one
sounds
day,
like a lot of
Andrew.
stress. No, it's just
Maybe when you
I-
replay the Outer Wilds.
I
Sorry,
think there's a
the Outer
reason people
Worlds.
got co-writers.
probably it's just I think
People
that's
got
also
co-writers because then you're like with somebody and you're like planning it out and you're talking about what to write, and then like, I don't know, one of you can fucking figure out how to phrase it, and then you just move on. And like, I have days where I will walk around in circles talking to myself about the thing I'm going to write and like working through the idea, and then I sit down and I'm just fucking, it's gone. Like I can't do anything all of a sudden when I was so like energetic a moment ago about it, but I can't like put it down on paper for some reason and work through the idea consistently. It's weird.
I would imagine it's also helpful to have a second set of eyes kind of thing,
Yeah.
where like someone can come in and give you some insight to something you may have just, your brain just isn't busy thinking about, just busy trying to get a video essay to exist, and your
Oh
brain
yeah,
just wasn't-
getting those observations in and bouncing back and forth about these ideas of like what you're noticing.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool, but I don't think I don't feel like I am confident about anything enough to tell other people about something. Like that's just the way that I see it, is like when you're making a video essay, you're it's like you're teaching somebody about something. And I don't have that. I don't have anything that I feel like I could teach you about. I guess I technically could teach you about
I kind of don't either.
Yeah, but like
I just doubt myself endlessly in a lot of the process, and like, is this worth saying? And also, is this like embarrassingly elementary, or like, am I wrong about everything also while thinking it's
Yeah.
basic? Like,
that is exactly the problem I have when I think about it, and it just makes me go like, you know what? I'll leave it to the professionals. And like, I know the
it's why
professional
people
is
try
like,
to show their scripts around.
yeah, that's
To
true.
just like
I
get a boost of some kind.
and I get that like professionals don't exist. Like, you know, it's like I don't know, like a professional YouTube video essayist is like I don't know, like not what I'm thinking in terms of a professional. I'm thinking like a guy who's been in whatever topic I'm talking about, a guy who's been in that topic for like 50 years and has like a retirement plan set up. And like, if it wasn't for this thing existing, he wouldn't have had a job. Like, those are the type of people I'm imagining are supposed to be talking about the things I want to talk about. But those people don't have YouTube channels.
Some do.
I mean, I guess some do maybe, but
I follow
it's-
some old masters channels on YouTube.
it's just not like I don't know, it's just not something like I've gone out and tried looking for stuff that I want to make video content about, but I don't find what I'm looking for, or I find what I'm looking for that isn't the content I want to watch, if that makes sense. Like, someone could be talking about the topic, but I don't like the way they deliver it, or I don't like the I don't like the structure of how they talk about it. Like, I don't know, like, you can take H Bomber Guy's videos, like the way that he does a conversation and then comedy, and then like conversation and comedy. Like, there are people who don't like Plinkett reviews because they don't like the comedy, or they don't want the weird, creepy, like live
character.
action stuff. Yeah, like,
Mhm,
and I get that. So like, there are. That's the thing, is like, I see when I watch stuff, there's a lot of times I watch them like, okay, cool, thanks for like giving me a college lecture, but that's not really what I wanted, because I don't need a college lecture about a topic I'm looking up. Like, that's not what I was looking for. But you know, the age old thing is like, well, if you don't like it so much, go make a fucking thing yourself. It's like, okay, no, like, I don't have that confidence. I can't do that. But yeah, so I don't know. It's a weird process to me to think about people that just do that as a living. They just wake up every day and they're like, I'm gonna write a script for 6 hours. Goodbye. And you're like, okay. And then I don't know. It's a lot. So I imagine trying to like, I don't know, trying to figure out what you want to talk about, and if you if what you're saying is right, and like having to constantly go over and over and over again. And then even above all that, like you finally figure it out, you get exactly what you want done, and then you play this like fucking cops and robbers game with a robot to try to figure out if people are going to be able to see the thing you just dedicated like 40 days of your life to, you know? And it's just like it's such a nightmare from like conception to execution. And I don't envy anybody who does it for a living, but it's very off-putting from like a general stance. Like it doesn't instill into me any kind of desire. I don't look at that and go like, man, I really want to get into that. Whereas Let's Play is just like, hey, can you record a game? Good job. Yep. And you're like, yeah, I can do that.
Whoops, you can't do that game. Fuck you.
Yeah, that game.
That's pretty rare these days. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't know, man. I almost got the whole channel removed.
Dead Souls playthrough.
R.I.P.
You played with fire.
Sex visual novels.
You played with some fucking fire with your choice of games. That's not like fault. Copyright problems. That's like, I'm gonna play stuff that's like on the box, like pretty obviously risky to play on YouTube.
No, I think I'm sorry. I didn't realize I lived in a pseudo.
It's time for you to make a Pornhub Let's Play channel.
I thought about it. I thought about making because I have so many of these like stupid. I don't know where I got them from, but I have so many of these like shitty eroge visual novels, and I was like, man, I really want to just like go through them because they have the best dialogue. Like they're always the dumbest shit, but it's like I can't put these on YouTube. But I did see a guy who was uploading Let's Play videos of Minecraft on Pornhub, and I was like, wait a second. This guy's
That's like reverse psychology. What's going on here?
I was like, wait. Well, then I just took it as like, okay, yeah, he's doing something, he's doing that thing of like that porn video of like, I'm going to tuck you into bed and kiss you goodnight. And that's all he does. And it's not like graphic at all.
No.
Like, it's like those kind of videos. But
That's
I was like,
not
Minecraft? No, but I'm saying that there's people upload videos to Pornhub that aren't porn. There's just like people you could just upload something to it. And I thought like, oh, wait, I could just upload like Let's Plays that like I can't
his point is that it's just the opposite of porn. It's like fucking stab you long head on Pornhub.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I could technically upload. I could record those and upload them to Pornhub, and then I guess I don't know, technically use that as like momentum to get more people onto the channel. Maybe I'll upload.
Probably less competitive due to there being fewer people.
True. I'll upload like really raunchy furry visual novels on Pornhub and then have people come to my channel for no furry stuff at all. It'll be great. A great bait.
That's how audiences work. They love surprise content that has nothing to do with what they wanted.
Exactly. See, now you get it. But yeah, no, I can never do.
Narrator, he did not get it.
But yeah, like but that's maybe, you know what, maybe obviously essay channels need to be moving to Pornhub because they don't have any copyright protection system.
Yeah, so. As YouTube becomes TikTok and only wants to have vertical filmed phone videos.
It's not gonna do that.
I want to do all of my Let's Play footage in vertical film, but it's still 1920 by 1080. It's just you have to turn the phone sideways to watch it.
The reason why TikTok does the way, or grew the way it grew, it's because you can just go from one video to the next and mindlessly consume whatever the algorithm feeds you. YouTube is just not designed at all like that. They can try to cash in, but
they
it's
have
like
autoplay and they have
yeah, they're trying to force it hard though. Like no matter how much I watch video essays all the time and so on, like my YouTube front page is constantly like 30-second video.
Never recommend the channel again. Never recommend the channel again.
Like an 8-second video?
I immediately just everything goes away.
Would you like a meme?
Okay, you know what? Sorry, this is still kind of on topic, but a little off topic. Have you seen how new Twitter ads work?
I think so.
So new Twitter
ads.
About
the promoted people that I block every time?
No. Yeah. So those are obviously there. But I've noticed that they start putting the ads in threads now.
I noticed that as well. Yes.
There are now ads inside of threads, and they're thankfully a lot more well, not thankfully, I guess, because now it's jarring, but they're noticeable. Like you can see that they're ads because it breaks up a conversation and puts like an ad in between it.
To be fair,
like,
I can in my timeline I can also spot an ad before I see the promoted. Like I can see them without even reading things. Like, oh, I don't know this. Yeah,
I just meant that like on the timeline they technically look like regular tweets. So
they
you
do.
could be like,
Yeah.
But when they're inside of threads, they don't look like that. They look like actual adverts. Like they have a different color border around them. They like, it's just I thought that was like really funny because I've been on a habit of like sometimes my timeline I block every ad I get, but sometimes I miss one. Like I'll just scroll past it and not even recognize. But now that they show up in the thread, it's like this perfect like, okay, here's the one. Block this one. And I'm like, oh, thanks. Okay, here you go. Click, block. All right, that was easy. Like, it's almost like they've somehow made it just like YouTube, like, here's a 30-second video. Like, okay, I don't ever want that again. And it's like they're just pointing it out to you now with like big Wojak faces. Like, look at that ad. You want that ad? I was like, block it, please. Thank you. Oh, that was so much easier. Like, now I didn't have to think about it.
It is so nice that you can actually block YouTube channels, at least kind of.
Oh, God, yeah. I would.
It just sucks that, like, you can only do it on one page.
Yeah,
it's weird. You can only do it on the homepage.
Yeah, because I'll see it on the sidebar, and I'm like, nope, don't suggest that to me. And then I'll be like, well, I'm literally gonna go on the front page. I'm gonna click my mouse wheel. I'm gonna drag it down until like 1,000 videos have loaded, and I'm gonna Control F that user that channel's name, and hope that it came up somewhere in that expanse, and then I'll block them. Because like you can scroll for a long time before the fucking video the channel you're trying to block shows up on your front page, even though they thought it was worth putting in your sidebar.
Yep, but they want you in the front page. That's why they do it like that.
So sneaky.
Yeah, I just don't think that YouTube is designed for that. It's so obvious that the creator community is not there.
But they want
like
that pie.
Even with them pushing short videos so much, like picking up old like 8-10-year-old videos about a cat that jumps on a tree or whatever. Like the title itself says the video. You know, that sort of old videos.
Those are suggested constantly.
Yeah. Like YouTube pushes it so much, and it's clearly not resulting in anything. I bet it's just like somebody internally being like, my boss wants YouTube to become the new TikTok. Let me try to get a raise this year.
Yeah,
and
they're trying to find whatever they're trying to find whatever niche thing they can get you with.
Yeah,
and they'll get, and every now and then they'll get me. Every now and then it's like fucking James being the best character of Pokemon for 10 minutes, and I'm like, I do want to see that. I would like to see a compilation of James clips from the many seasons I've not watched, because it's fucking Pokemon, but James is great. And then it'll be there's a channel that just uploads 10-second clips of The Last of Us 2, and they're just incredibly obscure interactions, like either bizarre secret moments of dialogue, or more commonly just fucking strange like system interactions, like you'd expect from an immersive sim, and you're like, oh, what, you could do that? and those are weirdly addictive, to be like, what the she hid by laying on a couch, like on her back. Like why would that be in the game? Like that's like some like Metal Gear Solid 5 weird shit, which is not what anyone expects The Last of Us to be like, but it kind of is. Also,
it's also not necessarily very. The way you're describing it, anyway. Why couldn't you just lean behind the couch?
It's just the weird specific, like seeing somebody. You can see like clips where Ellie is laying on a sofa, which is outdoors, like for some reason, and she's laying on the sofa lengthwise on her back, and then she blind fires a brick at somebody that's on the other side of the tall part of the couch, and so they come looking for them, and then she can like jump out from her weird resting spot on the couch to kill them when they sneak up and stuff, and it's like that's so
those sort of interactions. Yeah, those sort of interactions are probably the thing that Last of Us 2 was getting slack for, or I guess the company for driving their developers insane by making them do inane stuff.
All
that
these weird
matter.
Details. Yeah. Like I didn't even notice. I beat the game and I liked it, but like I didn't even notice that it had the God of War thing where God of War tried to do, where it's like the entire game is one continuous shot, aside from like obvious like scene cuts and so on. And I'm like, I didn't even realize it was going for that. That never even registered for me. But specifically, there's like moments where you can basically see Ellie like hold the door open for the cameraman as she goes through doors, and like when you see it in a weird 5-second clip, you're like, wait, what? wait. The game treats the cameraman like they're physically present, like they're filming a movie. Like he clearly takes up space. Like he doesn't pass through impossible proportions. He actually follows Ellie like somebody on legs would, and I'm like, that's fucking weird to realize once you're not actually playing the game. What a bizarre detail. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's just the symptoms of a big studio.
Makes it something that like wasn't obviously worth putting in. Like the effort was not well spent.
Yeah, I was about to say, it sounds like somebody, I appreciate the effort, but I feel like you've invested too much time in this. Like, I don't think you should have spent the time doing that, and instead asked for time off. They spent the time because the higher up said our game needs to have 300 or 3,000 people working on it, and it must have all these bullet points. And I feel
one
like
of them
somebody
is
probably just arrogantly thought they were a director of a movie and were like, yeah, don't forget to have the character hold the door open for the cameraman. Someone's like, it's not a real camera. I'm like, ho 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 ho, but it's a cinematic experience. Like, okay.
And I watched this is non sequitur, but I watched my housemates playing Pokemon Arceus, and it looks like agony.
Oh my god! I just got done watching.
I hate it.
I got to watch like
tell us about
3
this.
clips. Yeah, I watched
What
like
is this
3 clips of
Arceus?
it breaking. That's the new open world Pokemon.
I'm not even talking about break. Like it's ultimately still just the same Pokemon battles against the same Pokemon, and there's not even that many Pokemon in it by like most modern standards.
There never is.
But it's just like the same turn-based battles, but you can run around awkwardly next to the fight instead of having good camera angles. Like instead of the camera angles and animations you're used to from proper Pokemon games, you're an awkward avatar standing in the 3D world, not interacting with the fight, but just kind of watching it and like pressing buttons. So you have to awkwardly view it. Like it's literally like what Dragon Age Inquisition did to BioWare's fucking like camera reverse shot camera during Dialog, where it's just like, what if instead of camera we just fucking zoomed all the way out and now we don't have to animate their faces and you just hear the dialogue?
Wait,
fuck you.
Inquisition does that?
Yeah.
Wow.
All the Mass Effects and Dragon Ages, like they at bare minimum cut between the two characters as they're lip syncing the dialogue and hopefully doing some animations. And every now and then there's a unique animation or something more dramatic. But fucking Dragon Age Inquisition and Mass Effect Andromeda both do the shit where there's a billion quests, and all the ones that aren't super important, you just fucking like, you just stare at them with the same third-person camera used to walk around the world, and they just like talk at you, and so they don't have to animate shit. It's like that, but for Pokemon battles. It's like you're just gonna stand around as an awkward avatar while some people do a Pokemon battle over there, and you just awkwardly see 2 Pokemon facing each other in a weird piece of terrain where the terrain doesn't matter to the fight, and they just like. It's just the same interface basically in the same fight for as far as I can tell, but just awkwardly like they're not. It just looks shittier. It just looks shittier and less dynamic and less interesting, and it's all so that you can go around this open world where it's like everything I didn't want. Like I want to collect some Pokemon. Like I like Pokemon, like the Pokemon in the Pokemon. Like I like the Pokemon, so I would like to like Pokemon. And so I keep imagining like Sword and Shield caught my attention in my imagination when it showed that like a more open looking world and stuff. And I'm like, oh, am I gonna get to like be like I'm gonna jump on this guy's back and we're gonna fly over there and then I'm gonna use this guy to break that rock and we're gonna have like Metroidvania interactions and it's gonna feel like an action adventure game and stuff. It's like, nah, it's still Pokemon, but now there's a big field in one part of the game where you walk around a bit. This game is just that boring field from Sword and Shield, but it's the whole game. It's just a big field full of Pokemon that are just like immersion breakingly just kind of standing every 10 feet or so. Like just an incredible density of bizarrely fantastical creatures. Like
when you watch the show, there's each episode goes to great lengths to like contextualize why that Pokemon exists and where they exist, and tries to like make it vaguely believable in its weird fantasy, like, you know, completely ridiculous kids cartoon setting, but still it's like, here's the Squirtle Squad, or here's the Clefairy like cave, and here's the Moonstone, and all this like and it's like an episode will pretty much just have that Pokemon, and it's like here's their environment and their background and so on, and we're gonna explore that. But this is just like, it threatens to be like Ready Player One for Pokemon, where it's just like, you walk around a field, there's just 50 Pokemon standing at like even distributions, just absolutely everywhere, just as like they're just like our JRPG random encounters, and it's like there's like barely even any terrain, like nobody's like hiding in the brush, like they have to be hunted, like no one's acting like real life animals do, like because in real life animals don't fucking want to get seen by you, and like the primary way that you see an animal in the wild is when it's running away. like you like, oh, I startled a river otter, and that's the only river otter I've ever seen in my life. It was the one I saw just fucking haul ass down the stream this one time. Or like that one time I saw a puma cross the road at night while we were driving and stuff, and it just took off, and we were like, was that a dog? That was too long and low for a dog, right? Was that I think we saw a mountain lion.
Yeah.
But no, it's just a giant cartoon monster is just every 10 feet just kind of walking in circles or standing there. Like I saw an area where there's just a bunch of fucking Kadabras or Alakazams, and they're just angrily floating there. And it's like, in Pokemon, it's supposed to be like, oh man, once every 3 hours, I randomly see an Abra, and like it teleports away before I can do anything. It's like, oh fuck, Abra, what a mysterious creature. It's like, no, this is a bunch of Alakazams floating around in a field. Fuck you. It's like, it's a shitty open world on that level of like, it's just not a cool representation of Pokemon. Not that it's exactly exciting to have to hunt the way I'm talking about, but like what they went with is like rough, of like, this is just it's just a big circle with a randomly generated noise. But on top of that, it's not a good, as far as I can tell, it's just not a good open world. It's not any of the compelling things that I've seen in other games like Breath of the Wild or anything, but like instead it's just like, what if Assassin's Creed was Pokemon? It's just like we were just gonna overload you with that, like, obviously not like doing the exact, at least as far as I know, like climbing towers and shit like that. Like I don't think so, but like it's just, how can we give you as many tasks as possible? There are just hundreds of checklists. Like you look at every individual Pokemon, and each individual Pokemon I'm looking at right now, it's like this random video. They just highlighted an Enamorous, which I don't even know what that is. And there's a whole checklist of like number of Enamouruses you've caught, times you've seen it use extrasensory, times you've seen it use Springtide Storm, times you've seen it use Strong Style move, times you've seen it use Agile like what is this fucking completionist checklist where you're just trying to watch an enemy in a turn-based game use a move that you can't even tell it to do because it's the enemy. It's like, and I've seen that when you have the Pokemon, it's like times you've fed them and so on, and you're like trying to get this checklist complete to fill out this Pokedex, and it's like conceptually it's vaguely cool that apparently you're filling in a Pokedex. And it's like the original Pokedex and so on. So you're actually doing, research on the Pokemon. But like, if the research amounts to not like some like actual investigative work of like, oh man, where does it live and what does it eat? But instead it's just like, I don't know, like just fight 1 billion of them. And like eventually these stupid background milestones will fill up. And it's like every single one of them has like, every single one of the hundreds of Pokemon has like a half dozen objectives that are mostly just passive bullshit you would get by fighting it 100 times. Like that's just giving you checklists forever for the sake of it. Like that's like, it's in some ways worse than the, it's actually in many ways worse than the most base level boring open world games we have right now because of how it's set up. It's like, it looks like
that's
agony.
terrible. Yeah, I agree. Of course, you didn't play it though.
No, but I've seen it. I sat there watching it for an hour while I had breakfast, and I'm just
you got the
fucking confused why this is supposed to be fun. What I couldn't get over was that from the beginning to the end of the entire session of me watching, it looked like nothing had changed. It was just the same mindless running around in an open area and just kind of engaging with every Pokemon and so on. And it's like I know that the person playing has some kind of like list of tasks that they're mentally trying to accomplish, but I couldn't help but notice that the entire session was just the same gameplay functionally. So at one point they were kind of in a snowy spot, and at some point they're kind of in a woodsy spot, but like nothing, their behavior patterns weren't changing at all. They were just grabbing weird resource nodes and fighting like most of the Pokemon, but not all of them, and constantly like highlighting things to open up a checklist to figure out whether or not what they wanted to do to fight that thing, which none of the objectives are interesting. Like none of it looks like and I'm sure I'll be wrong because I didn't play the game and all that. It's me talking shit about Genshin Impact and all that, and so everyone's like, well, actually, and then the thing they describe also sounds bad, but it's different from what I said in some ways. But like it doesn't. Like, and maybe that's what the story does or something, but it's like those objectives should probably be like, oh yeah, find the home environment of the Clefairies and figure out how they evolve. It's, they evolve with a moonstone, like in that episode of the show. It's like those checklists I see are just the most boring possible checklists. It's like the fucking achievement list to the first Uncharted game where it's like kill 100 people with the AK-47, kill 100 people with a shotgun. It's like, this is not supposed to be the core fucking gameplay, guys. That's depressing.
Yeah. The problem is that the objective isn't the gameplay mechanic. It supports the gameplay mechanic, but if the gameplay mechanic is simply just fighting, then that's isn't well.
It feels more like it's there to appeal to people who just didn't want plot in Pokemon.
It also feels so counter to an open world to just constantly trigger these turn-based combats where you just have to stop dead in your tracks and do a complete normal Pokemon battle in its entirety and then continue on with your life. Like just because you didn't do the boom 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 or like like the fucking JRPG I'm in a weird nightmare dimension that fights take place in like transition. It still is the same gameplay functionally as doing that. Like suddenly you're just stuck in this fight and you're just gonna have to resolve it. But now the camera's boring. Like, well, that wasn't an upgrade.
Yeah,
I don't see the appeal of being able to walk around during the fight.
And it's not like Pokemon games just come out every 3 months. Like what's that grimdark tabletop game that I was Warhammer. Yeah, Warhammer. Anytime you want to play a Warhammer game, you can play a Warhammer game, a new Warhammer game, because there's so many of them. So, one bad game of Warhammer is par for the course. But Pokemon is not like that. They don't lease it out. I don't know. Then again, Pokemon Go is what it is, or was what it was anyway when it came out, and it still. I wonder if they just don't care. They're like, sure, good enough. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's good or not. That's not what's going to determine.
Pokemon Go has a contradiction built into it where, like, you just collect these Pokemon just for the sake of it. And then it's like, well, there's got to be a point, right? So we'll try to add raids or we'll try to have combat or something. But it's like, but the very act of catching Pokemon or doing fights with Pokemon and so on has to be so casual and so fast and so simple, because otherwise the basic premise of it being like a walk around game ceases to exist. Like I saw the Pokemon Go style games that they made for both, I think, The Witcher and Harry Potter back in the day. And they seemed so involved. And I'm like, I don't want to fucking stand there and stare at my phone every 5 steps and awkwardly in public and so on and like stop there. Like I got, in later parts of me playing Pokemon Go, I was at the point where I was like, I wanted to use like the auto catcher thing and just go on walks and then find out afterwards what I caught and then manage my collection when I was home. And it was just like a background incentive to go on walks, because stopping constantly to check your phone is just counterproductive to the whole like going around and doing stuff part that was supposed to be the point. But also you just feel really weird doing it constantly in public. Like you go to like a park and you walk in circles around the park checking your phone constantly, and it's like you're very conspicuously playing Pokemon Go basically, and it's like it doesn't feel great. I see you tweeting at me. Telling me to focus on the podcast. I scheduled that tweet. Joke's on you.
I didn't even know that was possible.
Yeah, you can schedule tweets. I scheduled it to happen. I put up a fucking. I put up a poll. There. I put up a poll for War Pigs. Who did War Pigs better, Black Sabbath or Cake? And everyone voted for Black Sabbath. So I quote tweeted it and said, I've clearly cultivated the wrong audience. BRB deleting my channels and starting over, and I scheduled it for when the poll would be done because I saw how the results were going.
Who did it better?
Aha.
Cake?
It was absolutely Cake.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Boom.
what?
Burn it
Purple's
down.
is terrible from Black Sabbath.
Burn it all down.
How did you even get to that conclusion? Who lied to you?
Ears.
Well, that makes sense then. Yeah, ears are pretty bad about telling the truth. They only hear what they want to hear.
I'm all algorithmically fucking programmed by all these social media things. So then when I'm like, oh man, I have these tweets gotta do numbers, bro. So if I have like two different things I want to tweet about back to back, I'll schedule the other one for like a few hours later.
Years later.
Sometimes a day later. Sometimes I'll be like, I'm just gonna pepper these thoughts out in the future over the next few days. And then when I don't have anything to say, something will still go up on Twitter. And I don't know. Twitter's pointless and stupid, so who cares? But also, I don't know. You felt the need to express a thought, and it's very obvious because of the feedback you get when like the thought you chose to express just isn't visible.
This is how
Twitter's just like, nah, that one doesn't exist. We're ignoring that tweet.
That system is also really important because it's one, it was stolen from HootDeck, which used to be like the big popular Twitter without going to twitter.com use. So like I don't like looking at twitter.com, so I'm going to use something other than twitter.com.
Yeah, I had TweetDeck like a decade ago, I feel like.
Yeah, and so like that was a feature in there where you can schedule tweets because obviously companies love that feature and whatever. And it's like how a lot of comedy Twitter accounts exist, like Dill or whatever. Those all exist based on just like someone sitting there and
Drill.
Like Drill, yeah. Like Drill is basically just someone sitting there and writing jokes for like a month and then scheduling their tweets out and then coming back and like doing it again. So it's like every day they get a new tweet and you like see this nightmare list of tweets. But yeah, it's because you just schedule everything. People just schedule all their tweets.
I see a tweet.
Yeah, like
Nightmares.
I thought about doing that, like making a specifically like a specific tweet every month or something, saying like what the like what I wonder, like trying to figure out what the
See if its
engagement
engagement changes or something.
Yeah, like there's something interesting, like YouTube's like that too. I did that for a while where I tried, like that's why I post my videos at the time I do, because I realized I like posted videos at different times throughout a month and like changed it just by an hour each. And then I noticed that like a particular time was when everyone would always see the video most. And so I was like, that's the one I'll choose. But I wonder, Twitter's different because no one follows me on Twitter. So I wonder like if there is a time. Yeah, well, it's like I have like under 500 followers. So that's like nothing basically.
I remember when you used to just fucking rant. And you would just post like 100 tweets in one go about one thing, and threads didn't exist.
Yeah, the threads.
So
threads really.
So you would
help.
just be scrolling chronologically, and there would just be like 100 Andrew tweets in the reverse order.
Yeah,
going on about something.
I should have really
holy
like.
Shit.
In hindsight,
like
I probably
Andrew's live tweeting about Mr. Robot.
Yeah, I should have like started. I should have really like organized all of the tweets, and then went in reverse. Like just tweeted about the things I hated in reverse order, so that way it looks good chronologically. But yeah, no, there's obviously the like scheduling tweets is pretty neat, but I would be curious what the best time to interact is too, because I think Twitter's also weird with how people see your tweets, because a lot of it is hinged or dependent on people like retweeting or liking it, because that's how it spreads more or less. Because I don't have a lot of followers. So in order for a tweet that I make to get a lot of interactions, it has to be something that people that follow me give a shit about, which is like very unlikely. And two, it needs to be spread at a time when other people are also going to see it and then spread it too. So it's like there's a lot of variables with Twitter that are different from YouTube, where YouTube kind of goes out of its way to algorithmically push stuff to people. But like Twitter doesn't. Twitter just weirdly, like it has like a small funnel. And so like all the people that get the most interactions are at the top coming down first. And then it's like my tweets at the very top, maybe going to get out there it might get pushed to like a new person. I don't know, maybe 1 out of every 10 billion tweets that someone scrolls through. So like the likelihood of me making a hit tweet and that hit tweet seeing number or getting numbers is like so impossible. But I don't know if that's also time, based. Like I don't know if maybe because I post my tweets at odd hours of the day, maybe if I post isolate it to like 8 a.m. while on the toilet, maybe that's when I can reach the biggest numbers. But
Number 2.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, exactly.
Scheduling is useful for when I like ironically update my schedule. I'll realize when the premieres of various games are going to happen, and I'll write the updated schedule for each of those individual days. Then I'll upload them to both YouTube and YouTube's community tab and Twitter, and schedule them for the days when the premiere happens to immediately update the schedule when I remember. And I'll have like 3 schedule updates queued up, and they'll be that's set to go up when the actual schedule actually happens that way.
Yeah,
And that's handy
nice.
because I don't have to remember the day of every single time.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
those are the types of automation things I really like. I wish there was a lot more those types of automations in the world. Like the
Yep.
kinds where it's it's more about taking away something you really, really, really don't need to be doing on your own. Like I don't need to be wasting my time posting a picture on Twitter at this exact time period, since I've already made it. Like why do I have to go out of my way to be online at that particular moment to post that particular picture when I can just say like, hey, you're not doing anything, right, Twitter? And it's like, yeah, I'm not doing nothing. All right, post this for me. It's like, okay.
Joke's on you. Twitter's always doing something.
Twitter's
and
never
it's not
doing
good.
anything. I don't think I've ever seen Twitter move.
They're always
Just sits
scheming.
there.
They're just sitting there.
Yeah.
You guys ever do you guys ever write fiction?
Yeah.
I did for a little while, and then I sort of fell out of it.
Oh, too
But
cool
I've
for
just been, like-
fiction? I'm sorry.
No,
I've been
it's just-
I just kind of been toying with it. I weirdly it's like sometimes like well, I can't write anything. I'm this is just a dead end today, and then suddenly I just start writing something. I'm like, "Oh, I could just write a story." That's weird. Like I'm in the middle of a day where it feels like I can't get Yeah, like I'm really in the middle of a day where I feel like I can't get anything done, and suddenly I'm like, "Here I go." I've been toying with some short ideas where I don't know, some of it I feel like it might be easier to write specifically when you don't think anyone's ever going to see it. So you're like, all right, well, this is gonna be literally completely self-indulgent if I want it to, and it won't fucking matter because no one will ever see it, and you just kind of go. But I've been shocked by how many words I can put out in a few hours, and then look back through it and be like happy with where it went, to the point where I'm now like I have like some pet like story ideas that I'm like plotting out like larger character arcs and so on, and like in like an actual like structured narrative and so on, and it's like weird. That's kind of fun to think about.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
That's where I stopped. Basically, I was too concerned with the minutia of working of like writing interesting prose, and then I realized I don't like
the thesaurus syndrome, where you're
not
just like
not so, yeah,
you
not
know
so
what?
much that I like poetry. I do poetry.
Yeah.
That
I
so
don't mean necessarily purple prose, but just the fact where you're like I can't say the same word again. I have to phrase it differently. I'm kind of referring to the same thing again, but I'm talking about but I have to mention what I'm talking about for the sentence to make sense, but I also have to try to make all the words of how I'm referring to it different, or it's just the same fucking sense. It's like
no, not really. That wasn't my issue. My issue was just that like you can write all you want, but if your story, doesn't, like if the story isn't good, then it doesn't matter. And the sort of balancing act that you need to have as a writer, I feel anyway, between coming up with a good story and writing it properly is not something that I appreciate. I like poetry better because it's very easy to get an idea or get a feeling or a moment, and then I just dwell on that a little bit.
Structure a whole thing.
Yeah. So it's a lot easier to just express myself, even though I'm not necessarily a good writer, but well,
I legit like
for
don't
the
get
internet.
poetry.
What? Like as a
Just like
concept, or just you don't understand how to make good poetry?
no, like I don't like poetry.
Oh,
I
okay.
guess like I
Yeah,
almost never
that's
like read poetry, and I'm like, yeah, I get it. This was great. I love how they phrased it that way, and it wasn't annoying or anything.
It's mostly for songs as well, but
Yeah, I've
it
got the
works
stupid
better.
what a
brain where
glowing
I'm just,
recommendation.
I've got the stupid brain for poetry where it's like I like the poetry that just looks like song lyrics, where it's basically just saying something while rhyming. But there's other
Yeah,
ones where it's like oh,
That's
it's
good.
the format's nuts, and like they did something with like the prose. Each line is different lengths for reasons, and it totally makes a point. And but like it doesn't rhyme. It doesn't like do anything that I identify as poetry, and it's just like just kind of saying something, but structured in a strange way that I don't get the point of, and then being vague. And then I'm like, I can try to guess what you were going for, but like that's some investment that you're gambling on that I don't necessarily have.
Yeah, I get the impression that the sort of poetry, it's not, first off, it's not something that I am very used to reading, but I get the impression that that gamble, that sort of interaction with the reader is a fundamental part of enjoying it, because it's going to be different from people to people, the way you read poetry. I'm not saying read out loud. I mean, as you read like a weirdly structured paragraph, you're going to hang on to certain things more than others, and maybe a single line alone just sums it up for you, or maybe it's the cadence of certain verbs or whatever. And
Yeah.
It's
Poetry can sound better when someone who really, really, really cares about it is reading it out loud.
Mhm.
Like was it John Green will bring up a poem on their podcast and so on, and he's obviously fixated on some of that stuff, and that's like it makes it a better experience. But like I have like Bo Burnham's poem book, and it's like there was like a couple that was like, oh, that was interesting or that was cool, and then but then like I've literally had it for years, like since before I moved here, and I still haven't gotten like past the halfway point of it. Like it's just sitting there with a bookmark wedged in it, waiting for me to come back.
Will you come back, Keith?
It's hard. I get it. It's hard to. It's something you kind of want to read, you know, like it's either you're invested in like the way that it tells its story, like the vehicle in which it tells it in, or you're not. And if you're not, then you know, it's just how it is. You just have to. I don't know. It is what it is. It's weird to like. It's weird to describe the appeal of poetry. You either like understand and like it, or you don't. And it is one of those like short stories. Like I know there's a lot of authors that did like in the newspaper, they just wrote a quick story that was a paragraph, or like the 2-sentence horror on Reddit, where like there's a particular way to tell a story, and if you like that way, you may see what is appealing about it. But it's
very
hard
funny
to put
to me
in,
that my only exposure to that subreddit is the Twitter account making fun of it.
Oh yeah.
Which I don't even follow. It just keeps showing them to me.
Yeah, it just shows up because it gets a lot. It does numbers.
I thought I was I thought I had a big dick, and then I saw the big dick ghost or whatever the fuck. Like
That's
just baffling weird shit. Like what? Somebody just posted that on purpose.
Yeah.
It all reads like film cow jokes.
That's the thing, obviously. You know, it's more supposed to be joke than it is for straight. Yeah, like no one goes into 2-sentence horror and goes like, "Oh man, I'm actually going to be scared." It's always like this goofy feeling where someone like walked into a store, let out a fart, and like, yeah, all right, I guess that could be scary. I don't see where you're coming from here necessarily, but I'll give you a shot. But yeah, no, it's poetry's like that. Poetry is very much you either really like and understand the vehicle at which a story is told to you, or you don't really care and it's fine. It's not, poetry is usually non-offensive to anybody, because its entire nature is just being too fancy. But poetry's always too
Just
fancy.
being
It's
too
like
fancy.
it is. It always feels like someone's trying to tell you something without just straight telling you. It always has to be like too elegantly explained, where it's like, like she bequeathed me a fortune, and it's like, you're just telling me that she gave you a kiss. I don't really need all this. Like, why are you? Let's get to the point here. Chop chop. Like, come on, give me two sentence romance stories. All right, I don't need your whole 6 stanza poetry. It's too much.
I was alone and then hug. There we go.
That's kind of why, like, that's why I like haikus almost more than I like poetry sometimes, because haikus have to be short because they have weird limitations on them. So I appreciate that, like, haikus can't tell you a 4-page story. It has to just be like, river flowed short, mountain big tall, the end. And you have to just go like, yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, you don't have to worry about parsing through a lot of what is a thesaurus and trying to figure out what synonyms people are using to try to describe something stupid. You just get to,
Jokes on you, my haiku has weird words.
why would you do that? No, your haiku should always have very obvious and easy to understand words. Don't make it more difficult.
Does it work better in Japanese haikus?
Well, yeah, of course it does. That's why it was built that way.
Yeah.
It was made to take advantage of their language, which you can fit a lot more words into.
Yeah, no, haikus seem genuinely awful in English.
Yeah, haikus are very awful to make in English. You find yourself struggling really hard to try and cram a sentence into that many syllables when, like, Japanese gets to just kind of like shrug a lot of that. They get to, because a lot of their benefit is that their words can also have longer meanings depending on what is next to it too. So you can take a 2-syllable word, and that could mean something a lot more when you put another syllable word next to it. Whereas English isn't as similar, where if you put like cow, it doesn't change into something else when you put like patty next to it, if that makes sense. Like, it doesn't go from like cow patty to like mountain range. Like, that's how Japanese can work sometimes, where you can take 2 innocuous words, put them next to each other, and suddenly it's like half a sentence now, and you're like, what the fuck, where did that come from?
Oh my god.
Like, yeah, you're like, oh. Which is
shoes never worn.
Great. Nothing's better than nothing's better for a first time learner than trying to understand, like, no, you actually can't say those 2 very obvious words next to each other because they mean something else. You're like, but that's what I'm trying to say. And you're like, yeah, there's a whole word for that. It's like, why did
so
you do
can
that?
avoid saying that?
Yeah. It's like, what? Can't I just put these 2 words? It's like, I have the Germanic problem where it's like, I just want to shove these words together. It's fine, right? And it's like, no, there's an elegance here. It's like, no, I'm American. No elegance. Only cheeseburger. Like,
God, I am having fun reading these in the fucking film cow voice, like from Meanwhile in the Ghost House. One day I was walking down the street and someone started to chase me. He said, I want to kidnap you. Massaging my boyfriend's back, I can slowly feel the tension leaving his muscles. Now all that's left is to season it and put it in the oven.
oh my god.
Oh, that's funny. I like that one.
This fucking Reddit.
I like that one. That was good.
Yeah, that was one from the from Bad Sentence Horror account and one from the actual front page of the Reddit.
Yeah. That's the thing. Is like some of them are pretty. I do like, hats off. Some of them are pretty good. They did take some thought, but there's obviously, like, I don't know, the majority of them are very just silly, very stuff I would laugh out loud if someone said in real life to me. But sorry, go ahead.
It seems to be very much like the setup and punchline sort of. If it, it's 2 sentences. Of course, it's going to be set up.
The second sentence is always supposed to subvert or pervert or something the first sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh my god, that's what's happening. What a reveal.
Not much to go outside of the box on that.
But
That's always
yeah,
like,
no,
how is this a bad thing? That's always what it is. It's the first sentence is bad because second sentence.
Yep.
I
Yeah,
had
it's
a
every
cake.
one.
It was bad. Dun, dun, dun.
Brutal. But why?
It's horror.
But it's cake.
It
The
was. That is.
oh, obviously it was Cake trying to do a cover of War Pigs. That's why.
It was it was truly a beautiful cake. Too bad it contained the birthday boy. That's the entire subreddit. I did it.
You did it.
I love
You
the-
did it.
Right.
Goofy nonsense.
That is very
Right.
high goofy nonsense. That's the premise. That's the general premise of those 2-sentence horror things. But yeah. What are you gonna say? Wrapping it up?
Did someone
Taking
say
us out?
something?
No, I
Keep
was you sounded like you were gonna start you were about to start something.
Oh.
You starting?
Okay.
You starting?
In any
Keith?
case,
I have no idea what I did.
I-
We probably
I
should
get,
wrap up, but yeah.
I do get the premise. I do spend a lot of time trying to write fiction lately, but I've been focused a lot more heavily on world development rather than actual context, because I feel like that's the hardest struggle is creating a place people can give a shit about, but not overcomplicating it. So you have like, I don't know. There's a lot of anime that spends way too much time talking about itself, and not a whole lot of time giving me reason to care about it. Like you could tell, like Final Fantasy is a good example. You could tell me all about the fucking Shika and how they fought the Jirjirs and the war turned into this It's like Final Fantasy makes up like shitty vowel names for something and then comes up with like an even shittier vowel name and is like, okay, and these two don't like each other, but these vowel names really love each other and they fought over this noun, and like it's so much. And then they'd go like, okay, now here's your story. You're playing the protagonist who is a nobody, and you're like, well, then why did I learn about these people? And it's like, oh, well, you're gonna get in knee deep into the exciting lore of whatever these two nations are, and it's like, okay, like, well, that was like literally all 14 was. 14 was just about like the fal'Cie, the fal'Cie. I'm like, what? 13. And I was like, what? Why do I care about the fal'Cie? And it's like, because the fal'Cie do fal'Cie things. I'm like,
I mean, 13 was fucking a game just tripping and falling directly on its face, where it was like not really establishing characters well enough for you to care at the beginning, but it was just dumping jargon on you, but it also wasn't explaining any of that jargon, and it was relying on you to, for some reason, choose to pause the game to read the codex to find out what any of the words they were even saying meant, because they said a bunch of weird, similar sounding words like fal'Cie and l'Cie and Seath over and over again without saying what any of them meant. And the entire story that happens during the bombastic, breakneck opening completely depended on you understanding any of those words. So it's like, we're just gonna go. We're gonna have a fucking cold open. Shit just starts fucking happening. She's fighting on a train. This whole place is exploding. That person's kid's in trouble. Her sister's a crystal now. Just all that shit just happens so rapid fire at the beginning. There's a war happening. That person's mom dies, and now he's mad. Snow is stupid. Snow is just very stupid. And like, it just goes so rapidly, but you don't understand what the fuck is happening the whole time. So it's not an effective opening at all. But then you have the opposite also, where it's like in Kingdoms of Amalur, they're like, what are characters? I don't know what a character is. I'm just going to tell you lore for 7 hours. I'm just going to keep explaining this world at you. Everyone you talk to, 10 minutes later, you'll never see them again. No one matters. Every single face you see is completely disposable and interchangeable. You'll never be able to tell these 75 different fucking Fae characters from each other, and you won't have to, because we forget about them the moment we stop talking about them. And by we, I mean the writers. It's a fucking nightmare. And it's like, and then you look at the lore and it doesn't fit together well. It's why I make the point of like this game needed party members, because party members the whole point is to be a series of characters that you care about, and they develop over the course of the narrative, and they react to not only your actions but the events of the story and each other, which contextualizes all of them in the narrative but also contextualizes the world, because this diverse series of characters all have hooks into different parts of the world and its narrative and are invested with different factions or races and things. And so you have emotional, dramatic reasons to care about what's happening because it affects the stakes for all the individual characters. And like, then so many games don't fucking get that. And Amalur just literally only has like 2 characters that are kind of main characters, and even they only show up like 5 times in the entire main story and mostly don't go anywhere. It's such just a wet fart of a story.
Gross. But yeah, so that's the problem I've had is I've spent a lot of time developing the world that it all takes place in, and trying not to make it like complicated, convoluted, or at worst boring. Yeah. And then also from there, like just focusing out on building out, because I obviously the only thing I know the most about is fucking shonen. So like the idea is trying to like take elements of that and creating it into a basically not making Bleach again, because no one should ever do that. And and just trying to like create what would be interesting, you know, for people. What is the most interesting form of interaction between characters with conflicts with each other? And it's obviously like you don't want to talk anything out, because talking out is like the worst way to solve any problem. It always has to be violence. And so just like trying to figure out how to do violent negotiations.
Now I tell a story through fight scenes.
Well, yeah, like that's the thing is like all anime is just about 2 characters like trying to negotiate a peace deal between each other and their shitty ideals. And the only way they can do it is by like punching each other until one of them goes like, "Fuck, man, all right, you made a good point." Like that's like the entire basis of every shonen anime. But I would like to
take writing. Should we like try taking writing prompts from the audience?
Sure. If the audience has writing prompts, I'd be happy to do like a podcast short story and just come up with like a paragraph short story about a prompt.
Oh, a paragraph
or 2 paragraphs. I don't care. I don't know what a short story counts as. What is a short story?
I was thinking like 2,000 to 4,000 words.
Short story length. Oh my god, short story length is 7,500 words. Okay, never mind. What is a micro story length?
I was thinking
50
like 2
words
to 4,000.
a little too much.
Like a meaty little chunk. Two paragraphs is strange.
I thought 2 paragraphs was like about 3,000 words. So that's my.
Oh, what?
Maybe I write paragraphs that are too long. Then all right, that's a good. that's a good way to out yourself. Like,
my paragraphs are like 4 to 6 sentences, maybe.
You know what I think it was? I think it was because in school I used to have the requirement of either like 1 page. Or it's like 1 page and a minimum of like 2 paragraphs. And so I was like, oh, okay, so I'll just make 2 paragraphs that take up a whole page. And that was just like the idea.
Yeah. Do you want to participate, Colonel? Is this an
sure.
idea?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you made it this far in the podcast, write a 1-sentence premise. And maybe we'll each pick one from the list that people send in.
That'd be fun.
And maybe that'll be like, I don't know, we'll probably just write them and then voice our own things, and then I'll combine them into an episode or something at some point.
Yeah,
that
sounds really good.
Either way, into my food's here, and we've been going for a bit.
And we all know the podcast only goes on until Keith gets food.
Yeah, well, actually, it got here 20 minutes ago. I've let it go.
We went way over. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, my and we've almost been podcasting for as long as I slept last night, so it's time to stop.
Jeez.
Go edit.
All right, well, good.
At least I usually sleep after the diet where I don't sleep because I didn't sleep. It's helpful in that way.
Yeah,
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Good night.